Chapter 777. At this moment, Ning Fan only needed to go into seclusion once to completely break through the bottleneck of the mid-ghost profound realm. His magic power was comparable to that of a cultivator at the peak of ghost mystic realm. After devouring 466 ancient god heart lotuses, the biggest benefit Ning Fan obtained was not the increase of his illegal power, but the possibility of the initial opening of his second heart acupoint. At this moment, an extremely small golden light spot appeared next to the first divine aperture in his heart. The location of the golden dot was the location of the second divine aperture. At this moment, Ning Fan's understanding of the ancient god's heart had increased by another level. As long as he cultivated enough ancient god divine heart power, he would be able to circulate the divine heart power from the first divine aperture and attack the spot where the light spot was located. Step by step, he would be able to open the second divine aperture. Once the second divine orifice was opened, the effect of devouring heavenly ingredients and earthly treasures to increase his magical power would double. Consuming a Dao fruit or pill would give 1/4 times the benefits of an ordinary person. If I have the complete ancient god heart cultivation method, I can cultivate the divine heart power and open the second divine orifice. Unfortunately, I don't have the ancient god heart cultivation method. If I have enough ancient god heart energy, even if I don't have a heart cultivation technique, I can still open the second divine orifice. Looking at the boundless golden lake, Ning Fan's eyes were filled with passion and helplessness from time to time. The golden lake contained some ancient god heart force, but not much. It wasn't enough for him to open the second divine aperture. If what the Enluo Immortal King said was true, then this golden lake was the heart origin that only a 3-orifice ancient god could create. The heart of 3 apertures could form the heart source. The heart of 7 apertures could form the heart realm. A 2-apertured ancient god could increase their dermic power by 4 times as much when consuming pills. A 3-orifice ancient god would have 8 times the effect of consuming elixirs compared to ordinary people. Moreover, once they opened up their heart origin, their magic power would double due to the existence of the heart origin. Heart aperture, heart source, heart realm. Ning Fan's eyes flickered. He put away his complicated thoughts and retracted his aura force. Then he slowly stood up. When Sun Luo saw that Ning Fan's aura force had increased significantly, he nodded and said coldly, "Go to the 3rd floor." The first level of the Cave of Time was a sea of blood. The second level was the Golden Lake, where the ancient god heart essence was. The 3rd layer was a vast and boundless world filled with yellow sand. Under the afterglow of the setting sun, at the edge of the yellow sands, a lonely river could be seen in the distance. There was a pyramid-shaped golden altar on the endless yellow sand. On the golden altar, there was an ancient 7-pointed star formation that emitted a dazzling golden radiance. The gold-armored ancient god, who had the cultivation base of Shikong and had been following Sun Luo before, was now shackled to the center of the heptagram grand formation. His entire body was enveloped by the golden formation light, and his face was contorted with pain, moaning and begging, "Master, spare me. Master, I don't want to die. Master, this subordinate can't bear this ancient god power any longer." The golden ancient god was rolling on the ground and howling. Suddenly sensing Sun Luo's arrival, his eyes immediately became filled with fear. He bit his lips and didn't dare to let out an unnecessary groan. As soon as Ning Fan saw the golden-armored heavenly deity, his face immediately revealed a strange expression. If he didn't hear it wrong, this golden-armored heavenly god who was rolling on the ground and begging for mercy was the ancient god he had heard of before. Sun Luo's cold eyes swept across the golden-armored heavenly deity and said, "This person is a half-aperture ancient god. He didn't have enough luck to open up his first divine aperture. Thus, it's very difficult for him to bear the ancient god power of the quicksand heart. He is my 3rd primordial spirit. His name is 3rd god. Mutu's original name is 2nd god." Then he looked at the world of the golden desert and said, "This is the heart world that only a 7-aperture ancient god can open up, the heart world." It was said that during the primordial era, someone had cultivated a heart realm and cultivated it to the extreme realm, causing the heart realm to become a world that would exist as long as one believed in it. Moreover, it could provide the ancient gods with inexhaustible magic power. The second level of the heart origin was opened by the quicksand ancestor. The third level of the heart world was also opened by the quicksand ancestor by chance. Unfortunately, this heart world is incomplete. It can't provide the quicksand ancestor with an endless supply of magic power. However, this heart world contains an incomparably mysterious principle, world, idealism. The three realms are vain and only one mind can do it. World, idealism. The three realms are vain and only one mind can do it. Sen Luo's words were like raging waves that turned Ning Fan's heart upside down. It was a simple sentence, but it contained endless profound principles. It was completely different from what Ning Fan had known since he started cultivating the Tao. Idealism, idealism. It was a kind of power that was completely different from the laws that existed in the world. This sentence seemed to be describing everything that existed in this world except for one's own heart. Idealism was the truth. If one's heart is alive, all living things will be alive. If one's heart is destroyed, all living things will be destroyed. If one's heart is able to trace the trajectory of the world, one could create a world. In this world, as long as one believes in it, one could exist. Everything in this world was born from a single thought in one's heart. In this world, idealism was the truth. Materialism was an illusion. Idealism and materialism were two completely opposite concepts. They contained all the opposite great Taoists in the world. When Ning Fan heard Sen Luo's words, he felt countless insights rising in his heart. When he wanted to carefully comprehend them, he realized that he did not understand anything. Mu Tu. This name doesn't sound good. It doesn't sound as good as two gods. While Ning Fan was seriously comprehending the Tao, Sen Luo suddenly frowned and said in a serious tone, "Two gods." Ning Fan's expression became strange again. His state of mind was already in a mess and he no longer comprehended the Tao. He did not expect Sen Luo Immortal King to give his second and third primordial spirits such unpleasant names. Compared to the two gods, Mu Tu's name was countless times better. At least it was a normal name. Two gods, three gods. There were many cultivators in this world who did not know how to name themselves. 2 hours have passed, but Mu Tu's grand formation still hasn't been completed. The ancient god power in this heptagram formation is still not strong enough. The cries of the three gods are not tragic enough. This means that the ancient god heart of the flowing sand ancestor has yet to completely awaken. His grand formation has yet to be completed. Sen Luo's eyes scanned the strength of the formation light of the heptagram formation. He was displeased and let out a cold harumph. Mu Tu claimed that he could complete the grand formation in 2 hours and completely awaken the flowing sand ancestor. However, he did not fulfill his promise. Thus, he must be punished. Sen Luo's body flashed and he appeared below the sacrificial altar with a gloomy expression. He waited quietly. Ning Fan did not utter a single word from the beginning to the end. He followed closely behind Sen Luo and appeared below the sacrificial altar. Sen Luo was dissatisfied with Mu Tu's slow progress in setting up the formation, but he had no choice but to continue waiting. Ning Fan stood on the boundless yellow sand. With a thought in his mind, he lifted a finger and a mountain suddenly appeared above the flat sand. It was the illusion of a magic technique. As soon as the mountain appeared, it was already eroded and decayed at a speed visible to the naked eye. Soon, it turned into sand and dust. This place is filled with the power of time. It's so strong. Ning Fan's expression changed. His heart was filled with astonishment. The power of time in this place would attack anyone who was not an ancient god who enters this world. The three gods were half-aperture ancient gods while Ning Fan was a one-aperture ancient god. Sen Luo's heart had no aperture, but he had already forcefully devoured half of the power of the flowing sand ancestor. They would not be attacked by the power of time. However, once other things enter this world, they would face the danger of being eroded by the wind. Do you know what kind of ancient god bloodline the flowing sand ancestor cultivates? Sen Luo suddenly asked Ning Fan, who was beside him. Ning Fan did not expect that Sun Luo would ask him a question. He pondered for a moment and shook his head. I don't know. Is it the time bloodline? The time bloodline is also known as the Lost World bloodline. It's the unique ancient god bloodline of the Lost World primogeniture. Currently, there is only one junior who possesses this bloodline in the entire Northern Heaven. He seems to be a member of the Bei family of the Lost World Palace. In Eastern Heaven, no cultivator has ever cultivated the Lost World bloodline. The divine bloodline of the flowing sand ancestor is called the true sun bloodline. The body of a true god that he cultivated is respectfully known as the god of sun. Rumor has it that his power of time is born from the true yang power. Sun Luo Immortal King said coldly. The true sun bloodline? The power of time is born from the true yang power. How is this possible? Ning Fan's eyes widened. With his experience, it was hard for him to understand the connection between the true yang power and the power of time. One is the power of extreme yang and the other is the power of time. Where is the connection between the two? Why can the true yang power give birth to the power of time? True. One yang and one yin. Ning Fan's eyes flashed with confusion. He seemed to have gained some enlightenment about the Tao, but he could not see through it. It was unknown if the Sun Luo Immortal King felt that the process of waiting was too boring, but he asked again. Have you heard of the heaven-suppressing treasure of the Eastern Heaven Immortal World? I have. The heaven-suppressing treasure of the Eastern Heaven Immortal World is called the heaven-suppressing bell. It's a treasure left behind by the ancestral emperor of the Eastern Heaven. The power of this bell is boundless. It is said that a single ring from this bell can destroy a world. Ning Fan answered. Of course, he had heard of the famous heaven-suppressing bell. Not only in Eastern Heaven, but also in the Sea of Clouds from Bailey when he was still at the Divine Transformation realm. Come to think of it, the heaven-suppressing bell had quite a lot of connections with the Eastern Ocean bell that Ning Fan had and the bell of Samsara that Yun Hai of the Northern Heavens had. Ring the bell, and the world. Sun Luo Immortal King sneered, then asked, Have you heard of the Northern Heaven Immortal World's heaven-suppressing treasure? Ning Fan shook his head. The heaven-suppressing treasure of the Northern Heaven Immortal Realm is made up of 9 pearls of extreme yang, called the Yin Fusion 9 pearls. These pearls were originally objects of extreme yang. Once they were activated, they would be as dazzling as the sun. When the 9 pearls were activated together, they could burn an entire world. However, the most powerful aspect of this bead is not its ability to attack with true yang energy, but rather its ability to produce yin energy from the extreme of yang, using true yang energy to refine the power of time. Yin Fusion 9 pearls, extreme yang into yin. Ning Fan's expression changed. All of a sudden, he recalled an incantation that Luo Yu had once taught him. There was a day in the Northern Sea whose name was Yin Rong. When Ning Fan's cultivation base was still low, he had once used the Yin fusion power to suppress the true yang power of his enemies time and time again. He had heard of Yin fusion before. The heaven-suppressing treasure of the Northern Heaven was called the Yin Fusion 9 pearls. Ning Fan wondered what the 2 words Yin fusion had to do with that incantation. In the current 4 heavens, there are very few people who know that there are actually 10 Yin fusion pearls instead of 9. The 10th pearl was found by the flowing sand ancestor by chance, and he forcefully devoured and refined it. Among the 10 Yin fusion pearls, the first pearl is the weakest and the 10th pearl is the strongest. The flowing sand ancestor cultivated the true yang energy. After devouring the 10th pearl, his extreme yang energy gave birth to yin energy, allowing him to cultivate the strongest power of time in the Eastern Heaven. His Tao of time is even stronger than the orthodox bloodline of the Northern Heaven Lost World Palace. Sun Luo Immortal King said, The flowing sand ancestor devoured the 10th Yin fusion pearl? Ning Fan's eyes widened. He suddenly recalled the golden statue of the flowing sand ancestor. That statue was holding a pearl that was comparable to a small sun. Could that pearl be the 10th Yin fusion pearl? The 10th Yin fusion pearl has been refined by the flowing sand ancestor. Perhaps, there is still a fragment of the pearl left. Ning Fan stroked his storage pouch. Inside the pouch, There was a fragment of the pearl that was filled with true yang energy lying quietly. At this moment, Ning Fan was certain that the fragment of the pearl in his hand was the fragment of the 10th Yin Fusion Pearl. The 10th Yin Fusion Pearl was the strongest Yin Fusion Pearl. It was even stronger than the Northern Heaven suppressing treasure of the Lost World Palace, the 9 Yin Fusion Pearls. Ning Fan's thoughts raced. Now that he had a fragment of the 10th pearl, he did not know what kind of fortune he would obtain. After keeping the excitement in his heart, Ning Fan began to ponder about the great Tao of turning true yang extreme into time. Vaguely, he already understood that the connection between the true yang energy and the power of time lied in the phrase, extreme yang energy gives birth to yin energy. However, it was difficult to understand how the true yang energy and the power of time could be converted into each other. When talking about the strongest Tao of time of the flowing sand ancestor, Sun Luo's eyes became unprecedentedly fervent. His Tao of space was the strongest in the Eastern Heaven. If he could obtain the strongest Tao of time, his strength would certainly skyrocket. Gradually, his eyes became blood red. Once he obtains that kind of power, he would definitely make the godly Void Pavilion pay a heavy price this time. Sun Luo gradually calmed down and began to ponder every step of his plan to attack the heavenly prison. Occasionally, he would mutter to himself, which allowed Ning Fan to guess part of Sun Luo's scheme. Ning Fan, on the other hand, was pondering about the truth of the great Tao that Sun Luo Immortal King had inadvertently mentioned. Puzzled. What was the extreme of yang when the extreme of yang transforms into yin? How could the true yang transform into time? In the third level of the desert world, it was already dusk. The sun was setting. Ning Fan stood on the desert under the setting sun. His shadow was very long. In a daze, he lowered his head and saw the shadow under his feet. He raised his head and looked straight at the setting sun in the sky. Then, he looked at the lonely desert river at the horizon. The lonely smoke of the great desert rose straight up, the round sun set in the long river. He looked thoughtfully at the magic mountain that had already turned into sand and dust. He squatted down and scooped up a handful of quicksand. He looked at the quicksand flowing through his fingers and fell into deep thought. Under the sun, there would always be a shadow. No matter how tall a person was on the surface, there would still be a crooked shadow behind him. There was no perfection in this world. After the sun rose, the desert was extremely hot. As the sun set, the desert was bone-chillingly cold. Day and night alternated. Yin and yang converged. The beginning of yang was the time of sunrise. The extreme of yang was the time of sunset. At this moment, the sun turned into a crescent moon and the day turned into the night. At this moment, the extreme of yang turned into yin. This was the principle of yin and yang. This principle could be applied to the transformation of yin and yang. When the true yang transforms into time, it was not as simple as the principle of yin and yang. Ning Fan closed his eyes and pondered for a long time. Then, he opened his eyes and looked at the setting sun in the west. Suddenly, he understood something. The sun rose, the sun set, the moon rose and the moon set. The sun and the moon alternated. Yin and yang changed. Day after day, year after year. Among them, there was the passing of time and the existence of time. Ta. The word light represented yang, the sun. The word represented yin and the moon. The extreme of yang transforms into yin and the extreme of yin transforms into yang. Only by repeating this cycle could the power of time be produced. It could cause the passage of time and cause the passage of time to corrode everything, erase everything and destroy everything. Ning Fan looked at the sky again. He knew that from day to night, it was not only the transformation of yang and yin, the alternation of day and night, but also the passing of time. Ning Fan held a handful of quicksand in his hands. He knew that the transformation from a mountain to a weathered rock, then to a gravel and dust, was also due to the passage of time. Humans would grow old because of the alternation of yin and yang, the change of the sun and moon and the passage of time. It was the passage of time that changed everything from the blue sea to the mulberry fields. Time was the passage of time. The true yang transformed into time. It was not enough to only have the true yang qi. One must cultivate the true yin qi at the same time and change the yin and yang. Only then could the power of time be produced. The quicksand primogenitor didn't cultivate the true yin energy, so he resorted to trickery by devouring the yin-dissolving pearl and borrowing its energy to turn the true yang energy into yang, repeating the process over and over again. In this way, he managed to cultivate the world-shocking time technique. Time was a supreme secret technique. The hardest thing to travel in this world was the heaven and earth. The hardest thing to retain was time. Ning Fan clenched the quicksand in his hand tightly. The tighter he clenched, the bigger the gap between his fingers and the more quicksand disappeared. He couldn't grasp time. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't hold it. Life in the morning and death in the evening. The dead were like quicksand, unwilling to part with their youth. Time. Ning Fan did not have the profound comprehension of the true Yang Dao like ancestor quicksand, nor did he cultivate the true yin technique systematically. He also did not have the complete yin melting pearl to devour to understand the essence of the change of yin and yang and the wonder of the passage of time. However, he was the holder of the yin-yang locket, the successor of great Emperor Ancient Chaos and the descendant of the yin-yang evil vein. Although his comprehension of the two words yin and yang wasn't profound, it was still considerable. Although it wasn't the most profound, it had a unique feeling. He could already use the power of the yin-yang locket to achieve the transformation of yin and yang. If he had enough true yang qi, he could turn yang into yin and the cycle of yin and yang. If he had enough true yin qi, he could turn yin into yang and the cycle of yin and yang. He had already understood the key to cultivating the power of time. He also had the yin-yang locket, a supreme treasure that could help him cultivate the power of time. What he lacked now was a medium to transform the power of time. He pressed his palm on his storage pouch again and made up his mind. There were 25 red essence stones in his storage pouch. If he refined them, his true yang qi would be greatly enhanced. There were also items that seemed to be fragments of the yin melting pearl in his storage pouch. Once he refined them, his true yang qi would also be greatly enhanced. With these true yang qi and the trace of blood of time in his body, he should be able to cultivate the power of time that was not weak. With this power of time, he should be able to greatly enhance the power of his wind mist finger, giving him another shocking technique. If he had time, he could refine all of these true yang treasures. However, now wasn't the time. Rumbled at a loud rumbling sound suddenly came from afar. The entire cave of time began to tremble violently. At this moment, Mu Tu, who was on the first level of the cave, had finished setting up the grand formation. He was praying that the Sin Luo Immortal King would not punish him for being too slow in setting up the formation. At this moment, the second cave at the bottom of the quicksand star ocean suddenly shone with golden light. The power of time suddenly increased, and it was comparable to the power of time in the cave of time. At this moment, the three gods who were imprisoned in the center of the heptagram formation suddenly screamed. Their voices were filled with pain. At this moment, Sin Luo's blood-red eyes flashed and he ordered Ning Fan sternly. "You, quickly enter the heptagram altar and help the three gods to share the power of the ancient god in the grand formation. This ancient god power is too huge. You should refine as much as you can. As for those that you can't, try to store them in your divine heart." After hearing his words, Ning Fan wiped away the emotions of Tao enlightenment in his eyes and regained his calm expression. His body flashed and turned into a ray of traveling light, flying towards the heptagram grand formation. He knew that the awakening of the ancestral ancient god's heart had begun. The second cave, no, the second divine aperture had been awakened. At the moment when the second divine aperture was awakened, the ancient god power in the heptagram grand formation suddenly doubled. It was not something that the three gods could withstand. Ning Fan knew that his current cultivation base was far from being able to refine such a huge amount of ancient god power. He could only refine a portion of it at most. The rest must be stored in his divine heart as a vessel for the Sin Luo Immortal King to use at any time. He had already heard a lot of plans from the Sin Luo Immortal King. He thought that he had agreed to temporarily be the vessel for the Sin Luo Immortal King's ancient god power in exchange for the little demoness antidote. However, there was no turning back now. As soon as he landed on the heptagram altar, the mountain-like ancient god power immediately fell from the sky and pressed down on Ning Fan fiercely. The space around him began to tremble. Intense pain immediately spread to his limbs and bones. However, he did not roll on the ground in pain like the three gods. He was not afraid of pain. His face was pale and his body began to show signs of injuries. However, there was no fear in his eyes. Ning Fan used the power of the black stars to heal his injuries while looking at the sky. His eyes were filled with a hint of passion. This overwhelming ancient god power was the purest power of the ancient god's divine heart. It was the power of the ancestral ancient god's heart. It could be used to break through the second divine aperture of the ancient god. The massive ancient god heart power flowed into Ning Fan's body and was guided into his heart. On his heart, the golden light spot was located and the ancient god power was rapidly rushing into it. A tiny hole was slowly forming. The second aperture of the ancient god. No more updates. Let's wash up and sleep. Chapter 778. Almost 90% of the ancient god power in the seven-pointed star formation surged towards him as soon as he opened a small hole in the second orifice of the ancient god. The three gods felt the pressure on them greatly reduced. They stood up from the ground and looked at Ning Fan in disbelief. Currently, the ancient god aura on Ning Fan's body was rising rapidly. Ning Fan was just an early ghost profound realm expert, but he made the three gods who were at the abandoning void realm feel an invisible pressure, as if they were facing a superior being. That was the pressure that a low-level ancient god would feel when facing a high-level ancient god. It had nothing to do with cultivation base or bloodline grade. It can't be wrong. This is the aura of a two-aperture ancient god. This aura isn't solid. The second ancient god heart aperture that he has opened hasn't completely stabilized yet. The three gods took a deep breath and their eyes were filled with shock. Under the altar, Sunluo Immortal King's blood-red eyes flashed, but he didn't show much emotion. Is this kid trying to use the ancient god heart power in the heptagram formation to open the second divine aperture? It's very risky to forcefully open the ancient god heart aperture in this way. If he succeeds, he will become a two-aperture ancient god. If he fails, his heart will be destroyed. He has consumed 466 ancient god heart lotuses. They might have laid the foundation for him to open the second aperture. Otherwise, he wouldn't dare to forcefully open the ancient god heart aperture with his personality. Even so, there was only a 50-50 chance that this kid would succeed in opening his heart acupoint. Will he succeed in opening his heart acupoint, or will he fall? Sunluo's eyes darkened. If Ning Fan succeeds in becoming a two-aperture ancient god, it would be of great help to him. On the other hand, if Ning Fan dies, it would greatly affect the success or failure of his plan. The three gods were useless and Mu Tu was not fated to become an ancient god. Ning Fan was a good helper. In that case, if Ning Fan fails to open the heart aperture, it would be better for him to save him. Otherwise, he would lose a good container for the ancient god power. Humph! If this kid really fails to open the heart aperture, I will forcefully stop him from opening it and save him. Sunluo snorted coldly. At the center of the heptagram formation, Ning Fan's ancient god chi was soaring and divine light shone brightly. He had already opened the second aperture of the ancient god. Under the continuous impact of the ancient god power, the aperture was expanding little by little. There was no joy in his eyes, only solemnity. At first, the second heart orifice was only the size of a needle hole. Gradually, the hole became bigger and bigger. Gradually, it became the size of a finger hole, the size of the first divine orifice. But the edge of the second heart aperture was still tearing, spreading to his heart and then to his entire body. Suddenly, a black hole the size of a pinhole appeared on his left chest. The hole was already half the size of a pinhole. The second heart acupoint had been opened, but it was on the verge of collapse. The pain and the emptiness of his heart made his eyes. The pain that came from his heart and the feeling of emptiness made his eyes look unprecedentedly solemn. He had truly underestimated the risk of forcibly opening the ancient god's heart aperture. As the saying goes, success is due to Xiao He, failure is also due to Xiao He. The reason why he was able to open his second heart orifice in one go was not only because of the enormous medicinal power of the ancient god heart lotus, but also because of the vast ancient god heart force in the seven stars radiance formation. Because the ancient god power was strong enough, Ning Fan could open the second heart aperture in a short period of time. Because the ancient god power was too strong, the heart aperture was constantly impacted by the ancient god power, causing the heart aperture to collapse. Even his heart was on the verge of collapse. This method of forcefully opening the heart aperture was too risky. Without the help of the ancient god heart lotus, the success rate would be less than 5%. Even if Ning Fan consumed a large amount of the lotus, there was only a 50% chance of opening the second heart aperture. The ancient god power was not cultivated step by Ning Fan, so he couldn't control it freely. It was hard to control the power of the heart aperture. It was easy to invite a god, but hard to send one away. The expanding black hole reminded Ning Fan that he must immediately think of a way to suppress the collapse of the heart aperture. If he allowed the black hole to expand, the consequences would be unimaginable. There was only one ending for him. His heart would be destroyed, his body would die, and then he would fall. The opening of the first heart aperture brought Ning Fan endless pain. The opening of the second heart aperture gave him a 50% chance of dying. The heart aperture was indeed not easy to open, but so what? The more dangerous the situation was, the calmer Ning Fan became. He clearly understood that the reason why he was facing such a crisis was because the amount of ancient god heart power that descended on his body was too huge. He alone bore 90% of the ancient god heart power of the sacrificial altar. The three gods and one person, on the other hand, only had to bear 10% of the heart power. In this case, as long as he diverted the excess ancient god heart power, the crisis would be resolved. Ning Fan raised his head and glanced at the three gods at the side. All of a sudden, the three gods felt a chill down their spines. They couldn't understand why they would feel flustered when Ning Fan's gaze swept across them while they were obviously shedding space cultivators while Ning Fan was just a profound ghost cultivator. All of this was because Ning Fan's body contained 90% of the ancient god heart power of the sacrificial altar, which naturally gave off a terrifying aura. Suddenly, Ning Fan raised his palm. The enormous ancient god heart power in his body condensed into an extremely dazzling golden ball of light. He flicked his finger towards the three gods. This golden ball of light contained almost 40% of the ancient god heart power of the sacrificial altar. To any ancient god, such a huge amount of ancient god heart power was considered as a great fortune. Any ancient god would benefit greatly from refining such a huge amount of ancient god heart power. As soon as the three gods saw the ball of light flying towards them, their eyes suddenly became filled with extreme shock and anger. They cursed loudly. Despicable! If you can't bear this ancient god heart power, you threw it to me. Junior, how dare you do this? He did not think that this ball of light was a fortune at all. Instead, he felt that it was a disaster. Even Ning Fan, who was a two apertures ancient god, did not have the fortune to enjoy this ancient god heart power. How would he dare to do so? He was just a half aperture ancient god. He could not digest this ancient god heart power and he did not dare to forcefully open his heart aperture with this heart power. Just bearing the ancient god aura pressure of this place was enough to make him feel unbearable pain. The ball of light flashed and disappeared. It turned into rays of golden light and exploded around the three gods at an extremely fast speed. Currently, the three gods were chained to the sacrificial altar. How could they avoid these countless rays of golden light? Each of these rays of golden light was the ancient god heart power of the quicksand primogenite. Ning Fan and the three gods who were standing on the sacrificial altar had been bearing a portion of the ancient god heart power. Ning Fan was supposed to bear 90% of the heart power, but he did not hesitate to throw 40% of it to the three gods. At this moment, the ancient god heart power on the sacrificial altar was redistributed. Ning Fan and the three gods each bore 50% of the heart power. The three gods were not real one-aperture ancient gods. They could not bear too much ancient god heart power at all. Immediately, they shrieked in pain. After Ning Fan diverted the excessive ancient god heart power in his body, he felt much more relaxed. The speed of the black hole in his heart was greatly reduced. He nodded with satisfaction. He ignored the cries of the three gods and sat cross-legged at the center of the sacrificial altar. He began to suppress the collapse of the second heart aperture bit by bit. The black hole in his heart shrunk bit by bit. After the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, the black hole in his heart completely disappeared. The size of the second heart aperture also returned to the size of a finger hole. The edges of the aperture were slowly stabilizing. Only now did the second heart aperture was completely opened. It would no longer collapse. Once the heart aperture was stabilized, Ning Fan let out a long breath. He was no longer afraid of the aura pressure brought by the ancient god heart power. He did not forget that he was the vessel of the ancient god heart power of the myriad immortal king. Once the heart aperture was stabilized, Ning Fan changed his hand seals. Using his heart as the vessel, he began to absorb the ancient god heart power from the sacrificial altar. Oh, the second heart aperture has been successfully opened? At this moment, Sun Luo revealed a surprised expression. He glanced at Ning Fan but did not say anything. In any case, Ning Fan, who had become a two-aperture ancient god, would be of great help to his plan. Mu Tu slowly controlled the grand formation of the first level of the stone cave. In the quicksand star sea, the third, fourth and fifth stone caves gradually turned golden. At the moment when the sixth stone cave turned golden, the divine heart of the quicksand ancestor was completely awakened. The strength of the ancient god heart power in the seven-pointed star altar reached its peak at this moment. Ning Fan sat cross-legged at the center of the sacrificial altar like a grain of corn in the vast ocean. The entire sacrificial altar now contained half of the ancient god heart power of the quicksand ancestor. Outside the sacrificial altar, the body of the myriad immortal king also contained half of the ancient god heart power. It was the part of heart power that he had forcefully seized from the quicksand star sea. Even though Sun Luo's cultivation base was high, he was not an ancient god. It was already his limit to withstand half of the quicksand ancestor's heart power. Because he could not take away all of the heart power, he decided to stay in the quicksand star region and continue to seek for the remaining heart power. Therefore, he needed a vessel, a carrier to help him store the heart power. The three gods were an inferior vessel while Ning Fan was a superior one. Ning Fan kept sealing the vast ancient god heart power in his heart acupoint. After he opened the second heart acupoint, this massive ancient god heart power was no longer of much use to him. With the risk of opening the second heart acupoint, he did not plan to continue opening the third heart acupoint recklessly with the help of such a massive ancient god heart power without any preparation. Even though he had consumed the ancient god heart lotus to lay the foundation for the opening of the second heart acupoint, he still nearly died during the process. He was not prepared for the opening of the third heart acupoint. He did not plan to take a greater risk and risk his life to open the third heart acupoint. He sealed the ancient god heart power in his heart acupoint and did not use it recklessly. Instead, he left it for Sun Luo to use at any time. In Sun Luo's plan, he was just a vessel for the heart power to temporarily store the heart power. When Sun Luo needed it, he would use it all at once. The quicksand ancestor was a 6 apertures ancient god. Sun Luo had forcefully absorbed the heart power of 3 apertures. Ning Fan was already a 2 apertures ancient god. Gradually, both of his heart acupoints were filled with the recovered heart power of the quicksand ancestor. He could not seal any more. Ning Fan's existence was to act as the 2 heart acupoints of Sun Luo. The 3 gods were just half apertures ancient gods. After Ning Fan had sealed countless ancient god heart powers, the ancient god aura pressure on the 7-pointed star altar was reduced by 2/3. The anguished expression on the 3 gods' faces faded away. They stood up again and glared at Ning Fan with extreme resentment. Ning Fan, on the other hand, gave them an indifferent look. "Junior, you better remember what happened just now." The three gods were so angry that they laughed and threatened him. Ning Fan acted as if he did not hear their threats. He sat cross-legged on the altar to regulate his breathing. Then, he consumed a pill and closed his eyes without saying a word. Sealing the ancient god heart power had consumed a lot of Ning Fan's magic power. He was busy recovering his magic power. How would he have the time to deal with the three gods? Three gods? It seems like you haven't completed your task yet. Sen Luo, who was outside the altar, suddenly spoke coldly and reminded them. As soon as they heard Sen Luo's words, the three gods' expressions changed drastically. They no longer had the mood to provoke Ning Fan. They immediately sat cross-legged on the ground like Ning Fan and formed hand seals to seal the scattered ancient god heart powers into half of their heart acupoints. His body was bound by countless shackles. Every movement he made would cause the shackles to jingle. Gradually, half of the heart acupoints of the three gods were filled with the ancient god heart powers. There were still a lot of ancient god heart powers flowing above the altar. However, he no longer had the strength to seal them. Master, I have reached my limit. I can't seal any more ancient god heart powers. The three gods looked at Sen Luo and smiled apologetically. 3 apertures, 2 apertures, half apertures, 5.5 apertures, less than 6 apertures, less than 6 apertures. I won't be able to unleash the full power of the Quicksand Ancestor's ability. Sen Luo seemed to be calculating and muttering to himself. He did not even look at the three gods. In a flash, his figure vanished without a trace. At the next moment, he appeared on the altar, standing between Ning Fan and the three gods. He was holding a rhombus-shaped blood-red crystal in his hand. It contained an incomparable aura of vicissitudes. Ning Fan's gaze swept across the crystal and his eyes widened in shock. A memory about this item had appeared in his ancient god bloodline out of nowhere. Thus, he recognized this item. It was called the Crystal of the Death God. It was a type of immemorial secret treasure. Each piece of the Crystal of the Death God was made from the hearts of 10,000 ancient gods. It could only be formed after 100,000 years of refinement. In order to form a piece of crystal, one needed to kill 10,000 ancient gods and extract their hearts to refine the crystal. After consuming this crystal, there was a certain chance of directly opening the heart acupoint of an ancient god. However, there was also a certain chance of suffering a backlash. In order to refine this piece of crystal, one needed to kill 10,000 ancient gods. This item used the power of the heart of the death god to provide for the god of life's cultivation. That was why it was called the Crystal of the Death God. Everyone could only consume one piece of the Crystal of the Death God in their lifetime. If one forcefully consumes the second piece, there was a 30% chance that he would die. If one forcefully consumes the third piece, he would die 10,000 times. If one forcefully consumes the fourth piece, he would definitely die. The higher the grade of the Crystal of the Death God, the more prominent the effect of opening the heart acupoint. The more heart acupoints there were, the weaker the effect of consuming the Crystal of the Death God. The grade of the Crystal of the Death God was determined by the grade of the 10,000 hearts of the ancient gods. Holding the Crystal of the Death God in his hand, Sen Luo looked at Ning Fan and the three gods and sneered. This is my third piece of the Crystal of the Death God. It is also my last piece. Three gods, are you willing to consume it to increase the number of heart acupoints of the ancient gods and help me complete the 6th acupoint? Master, please spare my life. When I consumed the first piece of the Crystal of the Death God, I was unlucky enough to suffer a backlash. After consuming the second piece, I could barely open half of the heart acupoint. You must not let me consume the third piece. I don't want to die. I really don't want to die. After consuming the third piece of the Crystal of the Death God, I will only be able to successfully open the heart acupoint once after dying 10,000 times. The hope is slim. The hope is slim. When the three gods heard that Sen Luo intended to let them consume the third piece of the Crystal of the Death God, their faces were filled with fear. Half of the heart acupoint was opened by luck because of consuming 2 pieces of the Crystal of the Death God. Chapter 779. Just as Sun Luo left, two traces of extremely ancient aura force suddenly appeared in the world of the black hole and pressed down on the entire world. Ning Fan had just caught the Death God crystal. Before he could react, he was suppressed by the aura force. Being caught off guard, he was actually frozen on the spot by the aura force, unable to move. One of the aura force gave people a feeling like the vast starry sky. It was illusory and boundless, unfathomable and unfathomable. The other aura force gave people a domineering feeling. It was like the brightest and most dazzling sunlight. It was scorching, stinging and dazzling, making people unable to look at it directly. Both of these aura forces were the aura force of immortal emperors. Their ancient aura force was enough to make the entire galaxy tremble. It's the Divine Void Emperor duo. They have caught up to us. This is bad. Even though Master is strong, he isn't a match for them. I don't want to be locked up in the heavenly prison again. In the first level of the Cave of Time, Mutu's expression changed drastically after being intimidated by the aura force of the two emperors. Divine Void Emperor duo. How did they catch up to us so quickly? On the third level of the sacrificial altar, the three divine eyes were filled with fear. His body began to tremble uncontrollably. The Divine Void Emperor duo, huh? Ning Fan secretly activated the aura force of his ancestral grade demon blood and devil blood and slightly activated the ghost face spirit equipment's ability to resist the aura force. Only then did he manage to resist the aura force of the two emperors slightly and regain his mobility. Ning Fan's eyes became more and more solemn as he scanned the world of the black hole outside the cave with his spirit sense. The boundless world of the black hole was forcefully broken open by someone. From that opening, one could see the empty scenery of the quicksand star region outside. At the opening, two immortal emperors who were emitting seven-colored light shattered the world of the black hole and stepped into the world at the same time. Currently, Ning Fan was already a second-step cultivator. However, he still could not see the faces of the two immortal emperors clearly. He could only vaguely see that one of them was a white-haired old man who was standing on an illusory silver dragon soul. His face could not be seen clearly. That person was the Void Emperor. The other immortal emperor was clad in golden armor. His body was tall and sturdy. Even though Ning Fan could not see his face clearly, he seemed to be able to sense his domineering and arrogant gaze. This immortal emperor was standing on a golden cloud, and there were 6 golden orbs of light around him. One could vaguely sense that there was a treasure protecting him within the orbs of light, but one couldn't see what it was. This person was Emperor Shin Kong. Sun Luo, long time no see. How have you been? Emperor Shin Kong sneered and looked forward. In that direction, a crimson-haired figure slowly appeared. It was Senro. Junior brother. The Void Emperor sighed and looked at Sun Luo, not knowing what to say. Sun Luo laughed coldly. He did not even look at Emperor Shin Kong and completely ignored him. His gaze met the Void Emperor's, and Sun Luo's expression turned even colder. Senior brother, are you here to capture me and bring me back to the heavenly prison? Junior brother, follow me back to the heaven prison. Don't kill any more. The Void Sovereign closed his eyes and let out a long sigh. Kill more? Senior brother's words are quite interesting. The number of people that senior brother has killed might not be less than mine. When you kill people, you are enforcing justice on behalf of heaven. When I kill people, I am killing more. What a joke. Sun Luo laughed loudly, and his expression was full of disdain. The spatial monarch frowned and let out a sigh. Emperor Shin Kong snorted coldly and said to the Void Sovereign sternly, "Why bother talking nonsense with this evil creature? Just capture him and bring him back to the heaven prison." As soon as he finished speaking, Emperor Shin Kong took a step forward. As he took a step, a large amount of golden divine light swept out from his body and turned into a golden seal that pressed down on Sun Luo's head. The momentum of this golden seal was earth-shattering, and it created countless golden ravines in the void. Like a swimming dragon, it flew in all directions. Divine King Seal. I wasn't afraid of your Divine King Seal back then. Now, I won't be afraid either. Sun Luo's expression was cold, and he exuded endless chilliness. He took a huge step forward, and his body was surrounded by crimson rainbows. His red hair danced in the wind. He was an immortal king who had passed the fifth tribulation, while Emperor Kong was an immortal king who had passed the eighth tribulation. The difference in their cultivation was huge, but Luo wasn't afraid of Kong at all. As the golden seal fell, Luo didn't run or hide. He just waved his sleeves, and millions of crimson stars appeared in the void. The golden seal pulled in all the forces of the heaven and earth, and it turned into millions of crimson stars that fell on Luo like rain. It gave off a deafening sound, and countless void storms were set off. The power of each golden print smashing down was comparable to the power of a low-level cultivation planet exploding. While bathed in the crimson starlight, Luo's eyes remained cold. Although the golden seal was powerful, his crimson star's self-recovery ability was stronger. The divine king seal couldn't hurt him. Luo smiled disdainfully. He suddenly raised his hand and grabbed the void in front of him. The force of this grab caused an unimaginable collapse of the void. The millions of golden seal shadows in the void collapsed and scattered. "Heh, the divine king seal is just SOS. Luo said disdainfully. Shameless boasting. Emperor Kong's spell was broken, and his expression turned extremely ugly. He waved his sleeves angrily, and the 6 golden balls of light around him revealed their true forms. They were 6 golden skulls. These 6 golden skulls were refined from the skulls of cultivators. They were at least the skulls of 3rd or 4th tribulation celestial kings. There were naturally skulls of 5th tribulation celestial kings as well. One of the skulls was even refined from the skull of a sub-emperor. Emperor Kong raised his hand and pointed. A golden ray of light shot out from his finger, which split into 6 and entered the 6 skulls. At this moment, the shadow of a huge golden tombstone appeared behind Emperor Kong. The appearance of the tombstone was somewhat similar to the steel of sun and moon, but it wasn't exactly the same. The 6 skulls flashed and turned into 6 withered skeleton cultivators in golden robes. These 6 withered skeleton cultivators were all celestial kings, and their cultivation ranged from 3rd tribulation to sub-emperor. Once the 6 of them appeared, they immediately charged towards Luo emotionlessly. Tombstone Technique. This technique is one of the strongest spells of the divine space scripture. Unfortunately, with your aptitude, I'm afraid you will never be able to cultivate this technique to the realm of Summon Emperor Bone. The 6 King Bones is already your limit. The disdain in Luo's eyes intensified. He suddenly opened his mouth and spat out 8 rays of blood light. The 8 rays of blood light circled around him and revealed their true forms, which were the shadows of 8 blood-red skulls. These 8 blood-red skulls were the skulls of sub-emperors. At this moment, a huge shadow of a blood-red tombstone appeared behind Luo. The 8 skulls of sub-emperors shone with blood light and turned into 8 withered skeleton cultivators in blood-red robes. These 8 people were all sub-emperors. When the 8 of them joined forces, they could even fight against a 6th tribulation celestial emperor. Impossible! You have never received the orthodox inheritance of the divine space scripture. How could you cultivate this technique to the realm of 8 King Bones? The Shen Space Thearcha's eyes widened in shock as he looked at the scene in front of him in disbelief. The Void the Arch sighed again. He knew that his junior brother's aptitude was high and that he was the best in the Divine Void realm. After the ancestor of the Divine Void realm, there was no one who could surpass him. Luo had not received the orthodox inheritance of the divine space scripture, but even the Tao of divine space, the Arch of the divine space, the Arch was not as powerful as Luo. Luo had received the orthodox inheritance of the divine space scripture. After the ancestor of the divine void realm, no one could surpass Luo in the Tao of void. This person's aptitude was too high and shocking. If it was not for the fact that he could not get rid of his obsession, he would have already broken through and become an emperor. Even though he had not entered the 6th tribulation of eternity and had not entered the emperor realm, Luo's strength was enough to sweep away all 6th tribulation celestial emperors. His realm was the same as the great elder of the slaughter hall, the Nether Sea Immortal King. However, his strength was not comparable to Nether Sea. The 6 golden-robed immortal kings and the 8 blood-robed quasi-emperors fought against each other, and soon, the outcome of the battle was decided. The 8 people summoned by Sun Luo had won. The figures of the golden-robed immortal kings were crushed by the blood-robed quasi-emperors. The Shun Space Thearch's expression became uglier and the murderous intent in his golden eyes became sharper. He opened his mouth and spat out a golden flame pearl. With a change of hand seal, the golden flame pearl immediately turned into billions of golden flames and suns and bombarded Sun Luo. Khanate treasure? Fire immunity pearl? Back then, you used this to sneak attack me and I was injured badly. Now this thing can't hurt me. Sun Luo suddenly raised his head and let out an earth-shattering roar. He did not use much magic power in this roar. What he used the most was his murderous aura and a lifetime of demonic thoughts. Endless blood-red flames spread out from under Sun Luo's feet and swept across the void in all directions, turning into a sea of blood-red flames. The blood-red flames were the flames of his murderous aura, and they were formed by Sun Luo's killing. His roar carried a blood-red sound circle that shook the void in all directions. The crazy roar and countless blood-red ripples reverberated throughout heaven and earth. At this moment, the demonic thoughts on Sun Luo's body were monstrous and his aura was terrifying. At this moment, Sun Luo's eyes looked down on everything. His demonic roar contained a great magical power that could incinerate and melt everything. Under this demonic roar, even the starry sky would tremble. Even heaven and earth would have to yield to it. Circles of blood-red ripples swept across the fire immunity pearl. Every time they swept across, the fire immunity pearl would tremble violently and let out an earth-shattering roar. A crack appeared on it. After a few breaths, the fire immunity pearl shook violently and broke into 2 halves from the middle. It was almost destroyed. The demonic roar still reverberated in the void for a long time. The Shun Space the Arch turned pale with fright and hurriedly formed a hand seal to retrieve the fire immunity pearl. He was afraid that the fire immunity pearl would be completely destroyed and could no longer be repaired. At this moment, his ears were still reverberating with a buzzing sound. The demonic roar entered his body and messed up his breathing. He was forced to retreat a few hundred steps in the void before he could stabilize his body. Every step he took would cause the entire heaven and earth to tremble. Shun Space, you alone won't be able to take him down. The Void the Arch sighed. He rode the silver dragon and flew to the side of the Shun Space the Arch. His murky eyes suddenly shone brightly. With a wave of his sleeves, the demonic roar that filled the entire heaven and earth was dispersed. The Void the Arch had finally decided to join the battle. Although he and the Shun Space the Arch seemed to be united, they were actually divided. However, when it came to matters of right and wrong, the Shun Space the Arch and the Shun Space the Arch had always been on the same side. He had the best relationship with his junior brother. However, because of what happened in the past, the crack between them could no longer be mended and his junior brother would never turn back. The only thing he could do was to forcefully take down Sun Luo and send him back to the heaven prison. Only then would he be able to avoid making more mistakes. Forget it. Let's work together and capture this evil creature back to the heaven prison. The Shun Space the Arch snorted coldly. The current Sun Luo was much stronger than he was in the past. The various divine abilities of the Shun Space the Arch were restrained by Sun Luo. Although his cultivation base was high, it was hard for him to make full use of the advantage of his realm. It would not be easy for him to take down Sun Luo alone. However, if the God Void the Arch and the Shun Space the Arch joined forces, no matter how strong Sun Luo was, he would still be defeated. Senior brother, you must capture me back to the heaven prison. Is that so? Sun Luo said coldly. The Void the Arch sighed. However, his eyes were even more resolute. Hearing this, the corner of Sun Luo's mouth curled up and he revealed an evil sneer. Heaven prison, I will go back. However, not now and not in this way. If I am not willing, even if the 2 of you come together, what can you do to me? Emperor technique, dark prison. Sun Luo suddenly raised his finger and pointed at the God Void the Arch and the Shun Space the Arch. The endless black hole world collapsed completely at this moment and turned into countless black fragments. After the fragments collapsed, they reformed and turned into two black cages. They were airtight and sealed the God Void the Arch and the Shun Space the Arch in the cages. What? This bastard has even successfully cultivated the Void Scripture's dark prison technique. The God Void the Arch exclaimed in shock. Even the Void the Arch revealed a look of disbelief. The two Thearchs simultaneously attacked and tried to break the black cages, imprisoning the two of them. However, they discovered that even with their cultivation, they were unable to break the cages in a short period of time. The dark prison isolated the two of them from the rest of the world. This dark prison technique could be used to attack and imprison powerful enemies. When used for defense, it could even block the attacks of an 8 Tribulation Immortal Emperor. The two Thearchs continued to use their techniques but were unable to break the dark prison technique. Naturally, with the defense of the dark prison technique, Sinluo could not harm the two of them. Seeing that the two Thearchs were trapped, Sinluo sneered and swallowed the entire quicksand star sea into his stomach. At this moment, the black hole world had collapsed, and the final step of the Sinluo plan was nearing completion. It was time to return to the God Void the Arch. Taking out the East Sea star plate, Sinluo's blood-red eyes flashed coldly. He identified a direction and turned into a shocking blood-red light that charged toward the East Sea star region. Along the way, the domain-locking formations of the star regions were all broken by Sinluo. Any cultivation planet that blocked his way was shattered by Sinluo's fist. Any cultivator that blocked his way was directly smashed into a bloody pulp by Sinluo's light. The life immortals and perfected immortals along the way had already sensed Sinluo's monstrous demonic aura and were all horrified. In the eastern sky, some thought-shattering old monsters, celestial sovereigns, and celestial kings that had lived for a very long time were horrified when they sensed Sinluo's aura. Those that recognized Sinluo's aura and weren't celestial emperors all revealed expressions of fear. Sinluo was a devil that caused chaos in the eastern sky 45 million years ago. With the power of one person, this devil covered half of the God Void the Arch and destroyed 107 high-grade star regions. During that era, 1/10 of the perfected immortals in the eastern sky died at his hands. The number of life immortals and first-step cultivators he killed was innumerable. The number of cultivation planets he destroyed was even more innumerable. He was still alive. He was still alive. There was a dimensional world inside Sinluo Immortal King's body. The entire quicksand star sea was swallowed by him. Ning Fan's face was filled with astonishment. In the past, he only thought that Sinluo was very strong and was comparable to the Nether Sea Immortal King. However, he didn't know that Sinluo's strength was actually far stronger than the Nether Sea Immortal King. He had even surpassed many 6th Tribulation Immortal Emperors and was comparable to the 7th Tribulation Immortal Emperors. Even the Divine Void Immortal Emperors could not capture Sinluo in one go. Instead, their abilities were broken by Sinluo and they were trapped in the quicksand star region. In that case, the second Jade Slip could not cause too much trouble to Sinluo at all. Only the third Jade Slip could summon the Slaughter Emperor and subdue Sinluo. Fortunately, judging from the current situation, Sinluo did not have any killing intent towards Ning Fan. The two of them used each other and lived in harmony. The various abilities of Sinluo replayed in his mind. Ning Fan let out a devil roar and his eyes were filled with astonishment. He always felt that Sinluo's abilities had many things that were worth comprehending. While he was pondering, Sinluo's displeased voice suddenly resounded in his ears. "Junior, have you seen enough? If you have, quickly refine the Death God Crystal and help me fight the Divine Void Immortal Realm." After being reminded by Sinluo, Ning Fan remembered that he still had a piece of Death God Crystal in his hand. Yes, his top priority was to refine the Death God Crystal instead of comprehending Sinluo's abilities and secret techniques. He did not have a good impression of the Divine Void Pavilion because of the poison in Little Demonist's body. He did not have any opinion on Sinluo's plan to destroy the Divine Void Immortal Realm and attack the Heavenly Prison. There was only one thing in his mind: to refine the Death God crystal and help Sun Luo accomplish his goal. After that, he would ask Sun Luo to cure little demoness poison. He did not have a good impression of Sun Luo, nor did he have a bad impression of him. He did not want to get involved in the grudge between Sun Luo and the divine void immortal realm. He was just a bystander. After refining the Death God crystal, make some fireworks for me. I want those with lotus patterns. Sun Luo ordered again. All right. Then he swallowed the crystal of the Death God and slowly refined it. At the side, the three gods who were chained swallowed their saliva. Their hearts were filled with lingering fear when they saw Ning Fan swallowing the Death God crystal. He had consumed the Death God crystal twice. He understood how dangerous and painful the process of refining it was. This kid is just a ghost profound realm expert after all. Perhaps he can't withstand the heart-devouring myriad deities of the Death God crystal. The three gods shook their heads in disdain. They looked at Ning Fan quietly, trying to see the pain on his face and hear the wails from his mouth. However, they were disappointed. After consuming the Death God crystal, Ning Fan closed his eyes and sat cross-legged without saying a word. He did not show any emotion nor did he make any sound. It was as if he had never consumed the Death God crystal. How is this possible? The pain of the heart-devouring myriad deities is so dangerous that even I can't bear it. How can he endure it so calmly? The astonishment in the three gods' eyes grew. They could feel that the ancient god aura pressure in Ning Fan's body had begun to increase. In his mind, Ning Fan was standing in a world that was reversed from the normal world. It was a strange world that he did not know. The sky was below and the earth was above. He was walking in this world. It was desolate and dead silent. All of a sudden, countless killing intent came from the end of the earth. From all directions, there were countless giants who were as tall as the sky. They were walking towards him with ancient footsteps. Each of the giants had a black hole in their chest. Their hearts were no longer there. Heart, give me your heart. One by one, the giants came from all directions and approached Ning Fan. All of a sudden, a giant rotten hand broke out from the ground and reached out towards Ning Fan. Chapter 780. All of a sudden, a giant rotten hand broke out from the ground and reached out towards Ning Fan. A putrid gray chi spread out from the giant hand, making one feel nauseous just by smelling it. A strong gust of wind blew and the gray chi turned into a giant gray dragon. It opened its mouth and swallowed Ning Fan. Ning Fan's body turned into a wisp of green smoke and disappeared from his original spot. At the next moment, he appeared in the sky. He raised his palm and pressed it against the gray dragon. Then he looked down at the ground with a grim expression. The ground kept cracking and giant rotten corpses crawled out from the ground. All of the rotten corpses had black holes in their chests. None of them had a heart. Each of the rotten corpses had an extremely dense ancient god chi. They were the corpses of ancient gods. Among the group of ancient corpses, there was an ancient god corpse with dragon horns on its head. Its body was surrounded by dragon-shaped gray chi. Its aura force was like a mountain, carrying an unusually vast pressure. It was completely different from the corpses of ordinary ancient gods. Roar. The giant corpses crawled out from the ground and roared at the sky. Their voices were filled with endless resentment. Some of the giant corpses began to wave their fists at the sky. Heaven and earth were instantly filled with countless ancient divine lights. Without any hesitation, Ning Fan turned into green smoke again and evaded the fists. His eyes were fixed on the ancient corpse with dragon horns and he remained silent. All of a sudden, several spatial cracks appeared in the sky. Giant rotten hands reached out from the cracks and grabbed at Ning Fan when he least expected it. Among the countless giant hands, there were countless traces of gray chi which turned into the demon form of a gray fire sparrow. It attacked Ning Fan ferociously like the wind. Ning Fan's expression changed slightly. Without saying a word, he summoned the memory-severing Dao sword. The sword produced countless illusory sword lights and killed the gray demonic sparrow. Then he raised his hand and cut off the countless giant rotten hands. After a series of loud noises, countless giant hands were cut into pieces by the sword lights and exploded into countless traces of gray chi. Then, the giant corpses whose arms were cut off walked out from the spatial cracks one after another. They roared at Ning Fan furiously as if they resented him for cutting off their arms. Among this group of giant corpses, there was an ancient god corpse with gray fire wings. Its aura force was extremely vast, which was completely different from ordinary ancient corpses. On the ground in all directions, countless giant rotten corpses were approaching Ning Fan step by step. In just a few breaths, the ancient corpses in the distance had all closed in. Among this group of ancient corpses, there were two giant ancient gods with exceptionally vast auras. One of them had the head of a tiger and the lower body of a human. The other person was a fat giant who carried a huge turtle shell on his back. Underground, in the sky, in the cracks in space, there were ancient god corpses everywhere. However, only the four ancient corpses could give him a sense of danger. Ancient dragon horn corpse. Flame-wing ancient corpse. Tiger-headed ancient corpses. Ancient tortoise-shelled corpse. Among these ancient god corpses, most of them were one-apertured ancient gods, a small number of them were two-apertured ancient gods, and a small number of them were three-apertured ancient gods. Most of the ancient god corpses with one aperture possessed void fragmentation realm cultivation base. Most of the ancient god corpses had the cultivation of life immortals. Most of the ancient god corpses with three orifices had the cultivation of the crossing truth realm. There were only four ancient corpses here, and they were the corpses of three-apertured ancient gods. Ning Fan's figure flickered continuously in the sky. He used his spirit sense to scan the surroundings and his expression turned grim. After a rough count, he found out that there were 10,000 one-apertured ancient gods, 81 two-apertured ancient gods and 4 three-apertured ancient gods. 10,000 one-apertured ancient god corpses waved their fists at Ning Fan at the same time. Divine light dazzled the world and the light from their fists shook the heavens. Large areas of the hollow space collapsed one after another. The ground could not stop trembling. For some unknown reason, the 81 two-apertured ancient gods and the 4 three-apertured ancient gods did not immediately join in the attack. Since they were just attacks from one-apertured ancient gods, Ning Fan was not afraid no matter how many ancient gods there were. Ning Fan raised his hand and summoned the memory-severing Dao sword. He made a hand seal and the sword turned into 108,000 sword shadows, setting up a sword formation. Rays of illusory sword light began to rampage and kill in the sword formation. Groups of one-apertured ancient gods were killed by the sword light, exploding into traces of gray chi. Every time an ancient god was killed, a trace of gray chi would fly out from the black hole in the ancient god's chest and enter Ning Fan's body. Once the gray chi entered his body, it would rush to his heart, causing an excruciating pain as if his heart was being torn apart. At the same time, it would deprive his heart of its life force bit by bit. Ning Fan used the illusory sword formation to kill all one-apertured ancient gods. Immediately, 10,000 traces of gray chi appeared in his body. Boundless pain assaulted him. Ning Fan's breathing became sluggish. His face immediately turned abnormally red and his chi began to become slightly chaotic. His heart was tainted by countless traces of gray chi. At the moment when the gray chi appeared, Ning Fan lost control of his mind. He almost wanted to break free from this illusory realm. This was one of the reasons why countless people failed to open up their divine apertures after consuming the Death God's crystal. A fragile heart could not resist the corrosion of the gray chi at all. The strength of one's heart had nothing to do with one's cultivation level. It was closely related to one's ancient god realm. Cultivators who were not ancient gods would immediately be corroded by the gray chi once they come into contact with it. They would be forced to break free from the illusory realm forcefully, causing the refinement of the Death God's crystal to fail. Even ordinary one-apertured ancient gods would not be able to resist the corrosion of 10,000 traces of gray chi at the same time. Those who are heartless will die. Those who are heartless will die. Those who are heartless will die. We are unwilling to accept this. The remaining 81 2-apertured ancient gods' corpses and 4 3-apertured ancient gods' corpses roared furiously. Ning Fan's mind gradually lost control. The illusory realm in front of him split into 2 and then into 4. As the number of changes increased, he could no longer see anything clearly. Heaven and earth seemed to be shaking, and everything began to blur. At this moment, it was not the heaven and earth or the illusory realm that was wavering. It was Ning Fan's heart. At this moment, it was also Ning Fan's heart that might suffer the backlash. The roars of the ancient gods' corpses echoed in his ears. Suddenly, Ning Fan realized that the gray qi in his body was growing bit by bit. The amount of gray qi was increasing and it contained endless negative emotions. Resentment, anger, unwillingness, jealousy, greed, fear, despair, sorrow. Ning Fan vaguely had an epiphany. His eyes turned sharp and he shouted coldly. His divine heart emitted countless rays of divine light, slightly dispersing part of the gray qi. His eyes regained some clarity. As expected, this gray qi is the combination of all the negative emotions of the fallen ancient gods. Ning Fan's eyes turned cold and he muttered to himself. To open the first aperture of an ancient god, he relied on the opportunity given by Ancestor Yu. It was not the right way. To open the first aperture, he had to endure the pain of severing his heart for 1,000 years. After that, he opened the first heart aperture and his heart became even more persevering. He was no longer afraid of any pain. Even though he used the ancient god heart lotus to build a good foundation for opening the second aperture, he was still on the verge of danger. Fortunately, he was calm and decisive in the face of danger. He abandoned the excess ancient god heart force to ensure the success of opening the heart aperture. After opening the second aperture, his heart became calmer. The more serious the situation was, the more he could calm himself down and not lose his composure. The third aperture was the divine aperture that Ning Fan was trying to open by consuming the death god crystal. The process was filled with endless negative emotions. Those were all the emotions left behind by the 10,000 ancient gods after they lost their divine hearts. I must eliminate all these negative emotions. The divine light on Ning Fan's body became stronger and stronger. That divine light came from his heart. He was a 2-aperture ancient god. His heart was already strong enough to suppress all these negative emotions. The gray qi in his divine heart gradually disappeared amidst a sizzling sound. The gray qi was not expelled from Ning Fan's body. Instead, it was forcefully refined by him. Why would he be afraid of these negative emotions? Every time he refined a bit of gray qi, his divine heart would become stronger. After refining 10,000 traces of gray qi, a gray light spot slowly appeared above his divine heart. That light spot was right beside the second divine aperture. That spot was the location to open the third divine aperture. I can obtain gray qi by killing the ancient god corpses in the illusory realm. Refining this gray qi might increase the ancient god heart force and help me open the heart aperture. All of this is just a possibility. It's not absolute. Ning Fan's eyes were now completely clear. He understood the key to refining the death god crystal. He already understood why this death god heart could help people open the heart aperture. Killing 10,000 ancient gods and extracting their hearts was not as simple as extracting their heart force. Instead, one had to kill these ancient gods using incomparably cruel methods, causing their hearts to be filled with all kinds of negative emotions before they died. The stronger the divine heart of an ancient god was, the less likely it was for them to have negative emotions. However, once negative emotions are produced, those emotions would be even more ingrained and indelible. It would make people unable to extricate themselves and sink deep into the mud. Killing these ancient gods, extracting their hearts, and refining them into crystals, the death god crystal was the amalgamation of countless negative emotions. When a cultivator consumes it to resist the negative emotions within, it could temper their heart and improve the power of their divine heart. If the grade of the death god crystal is too low, it would not have much of an effect. If the grade of the death god crystal is too high and the negative emotions are too strong, the cultivator who consumes the crystal would not be able to resist it. Hence, the The refinement process would usually fail. Mu-2 and the three gods had failed to refine the crystal because they could not resist the negative emotions. As for Sun Luo, it was because even though he was not an ancient god, he had always been obsessed with evil thoughts and had an extremely tough will. What he refined was just a second-grade death god crystal, which was far from enough to open the heart aperture. The grade of the death god crystal that Ning Fan obtained was neither too high nor too low. It was just right for him to use. The power of the gray qi could make him lose himself for a moment, but it was not enough to make him sink completely. It was still within the range of his refinement ability. Standing in the sky, Ning Fan scanned his surroundings with his spirit sense. When he saw the remaining ancient god corpses, his eyes flashed with determination. The negative emotions of 10,001 aperture ancient gods were not enough to help him open the third heart aperture. He needed more gray qi. At the moment when Ning Fan scanned them with his spirit sense, the 81 two-aperture ancient gods moved. These two-aperture ancient gods at the ghost profound realm let out deafening roars. Some of them flew into the sky while some of them were already in the sky. All of them were closing in on Ning Fan. At a certain moment, the 81 ancient gods suddenly stretched out their palms in unison. The gray qi around their bodies condensed into longbows which were held in their palms. Amidst the thunderous roars, the 81 ancient gods drew their bows and released their arrows. 81 whistling giant arrows made of gray light pierced through the sky towards Ning Fan. Each of the gray arrow light had the destructive power of a ghost profound realm attack. Among the 81 arrows, 6 or 7 of them even had the destructive power of a peak ghost profound realm attack. The arrows fell at the same time. Gray qi covered the sky. This piece of land that was already upside down was once again turned upside down. Before the arrows could get close to him, Ning Fan immediately lifted one of his feet and stepped on the sky. Immediately, a huge ravine with lead-colored light appeared in the sky. Within the ravine, a gigantic lead-colored lotus grew. At the next moment, millions of lotus shadows appeared in the sky. Divine light illuminated the world. The arrows bombarded the defense of the three flowers but failed to break it. To be honest, the strength of Ning Fan's three flowers technique was not enough to defend against the joint attacks of 81 life immortal realm experts. However, in this illusory realm, Ning Fan's three flowers technique seemed to have undergone some changes. The natal lead lotus that he summoned was the human lotus. It was actually born from the countless ravines. It was a humongous object that was as large as a mountain. Unknowingly, the defense of his three flowers converging prominence technique had greatly improved. When his first flower was cultivated to the great perfection realm, it was enough to defend against the destructive power of an early truth-crossing realm expert. However, at this moment, under the full defense of this technique, even a mid-truth-crossing realm expert might not be able to destroy or break through the lotus shadows that filled the sky. The power of the three flowers converging prominence technique has increased. Ning Fan's eyes were filled with surprise at first. Then he seemed to have understood something. The reason why the technique's power increased might be related to the act of consuming the ancient god heart lotus. The three flowers converging prominence was a divine technique of the ancient gods. It was a necessary technique to pluck the ancient god heart lotus. It was not impossible that consuming the ancient god heart lotus could increase the power of the technique. While Ning Fan was surprised by the increase in the power of the three flowers technique, all of the ancient gods' corpses revealed a look of terror the moment they saw the lead lotus. The era where these ancient gods fell was too long ago. It was so long ago that the three flowers technique had not been created by a powerful ancient god yet. During that era, an ancient god appeared out of nowhere and created the three flowers converging prominence technique. This ancient god was cruel by nature. He loved to kill other divine races the most. He used the divine hearts of others to refine the death god crystal. His title was Death Ancestor. The Death Ancestor was the murderer who snatched the hearts of these ancient gods. Even though these ancient gods' corpses had lost their spiritual intelligence, they still instinctively feared the Death Ancestor. That fear was evoked by Ning Fan's three flowers technique. Run! The moment they saw the lotus shadows that filled the sky, the 81 2 apertures ancient gods and 6 3 apertures ancient gods turned and fled without exception. Chapter 781. Ning Fan was slightly surprised when he saw the remaining 2 and 3 apertures of the god corpses fleeing without putting up a fight. Millions of lotus shadows coiled around his body. In a flash, he chased after them. In order to open his third heart aperture, he needed the gray chi inside these god corpses. The enemy had 81 life immortal realm experts and 4 Dujin realm experts. If Ning Fan were to fight them head-on, it would not be easy for him to kill all of them. Now that these god corpses fled without putting up a fight, it couldn't be better for Ning Fan. After chasing after the god corpses, Ning Fan raised his hand and summoned the memory-severing Dao sword, creating large areas of illusory sword formations to block the path of the god corpses. Those 2 orifices god corpses with weak cultivation bases died under Ning Fan's illusory sword formations one after another. In those layers of illusions, they saw their own memories when they were still alive. Happy, sad, fearful. In the end, they died in the illusions. The 2 orifices god corpses were killed by the sword shadows one after another. Traces of gray chi went into Ning Fan's body. These 2 orifices god corpses were in a panic. They did not defend themselves against Ning Fan's attacks at all. They just instinctively ran for their lives, afraid of the lotus shadows around Ning Fan. Even the peak ghost profound realm 2 orifices god corpses gradually died in Ning Fan's hands. Only 4 3 orifices god corpses with different appearances were still running for their lives. After killing 81 2 orifices god corpses, 81 traces of gray chi appeared in Ning Fan's body. These gray chi were condensed from the negative emotions of 2 orifices ancient gods. A single trace of gray chi was equivalent to hundreds of traces of 1 orifice ancient god's gray chi. When the gray chi entered his heart, Ning Fan felt a sharp pain. His traveling light immediately became stagnant and he almost fell off the clouds. Countless layers of illusions appeared in front of his eyes. In these illusions, there was a giant in black robes who was holding a sickle. He was cruelly slaughtering the ancient gods one after another, seizing their hearts and refining them into the death god crystal. This giant in black robes was surrounded by countless lotus shadows of 3 colors. He was called the death ancestor by the ancient gods. The aura of this giant in black robes was terrifyingly strong. Even though it was not as strong as immortal sovereign Zido, it was much stronger than immortal Emperor Mo Zhong whom Ning Fan had met before. The death ancestor? He is the one who refined the death god crystal. Ning Fan's expression changed slightly. He gritted his teeth and activated his heart force. Divine light shone around his body, dispelling the illusions one after another. His eyes regained their clarity. After stabilizing his chi, Ning Fan used the Black Devil escape art continuously in a flash of light and continued his pursuit. After absorbing the gray chi of 81 2 apertures ancient gods, Ning Fan had already opened up half of his third heart orifice. Ning Fan knew that as long as he could kill the 4 3 apertures ancient gods in front of him and seize the gray chi in their bodies, he would have a chance to open up his third heart orifice. Sensing that Ning Fan was still chasing after them, the 4 god corpses suddenly changed their escaping light and fled in 4 different directions. Ning Fan's eyes turned slightly serious. Then he identified one of them and chased after him. He was chasing the tiger-headed god corpse with the weakest aura among the 4 god corpses. It was obvious that this tiger-headed god's corpse cultivated a godly cultivation method with the body of a monster. Because his monster cultivation method hadn't completely dissipated, the tiger head didn't disappear. His divine path cultivation method was not pure, so he was the weakest of the 4 corpses. Although he was at the early stage of the crossing truth realm, his strength was about the same as Sun Yan. Seeing that Ning Fan was chasing after him, the tiger-headed divine corpse's expression was filled with terror and he fled even faster. Ning Fan's eyes turned grim. He continuously used the Black Devil escape for more than 10 times and forcefully arrived in front of the tiger-headed divine corpse. Then he pointed a sword ray at his finger and split the void space apart, blocking the divine corpse's escape light. At the moment he blocked the tiger-headed divine corpse, Ning Fan summoned his true body's Tao image without saying a word. The day suddenly turned into night and the sky was filled with 7 stars. The black and white heaven-holding imprint instantly condensed in his palm. Without any hesitation, he directly slammed it at the tiger-headed divine corpse. A palm imprint that blotted out the sky descended. The tiger-headed divine corpse's expression changed drastically. With a sway of his body, he created 1,000,000 illusory figures which collided with the gigantic palm imprint. This was a divine ability that used the illusory figures as a human wall for defense. The 1,000,000 illusory figures were destroyed by the palm imprint one after another, reducing the power of the heaven-holding imprint by 50%. The remaining palm imprint continued to fall from the sky. As for the tiger-headed divine corpse, he did not have much magic power left after using the illusory body defense technique. Under the threat of danger, the tiger-headed divine corpse's body swayed and disappeared from his original spot. In an instant he appeared 1,000,000 li away. That palm imprint also disappeared in a flash. In the blink of an eye, it appeared 1,000,000 li away from the head of the tiger-headed divine corpse. The edge of the heaven-holding imprint faintly glowed with a faint purple-golden light. The tiger-headed divine corpse did not expect that he would not be able to avoid the palm imprint. He let out a miserable shriek and was struck by the palm imprint. Then he fell from the sky with severe injuries. On the ground, large patches of black flames had already appeared unknowingly. As soon as the tiger-headed divine corpse fell to the ground, it was immediately engulfed in the sea of flames. It let out an earth-shattering shriek. Ning Fan followed closely behind it. He descended slightly and changed his hand's seal. The black flames immediately condensed into a gigantic black cauldron, trapping the tiger-headed divine corpse in it and burning it desperately. Gradually, the cries of the tiger-headed divine corpse stopped. With a loud bang, the body of the tiger-headed divine corpse in the cauldron collapsed and turned into countless traces of gray qi. Ning Fan opened his mouth and swallowed all of the gray qi into his body. Then he retracted the black flames and sat cross-legged on the ground to refine the gray qi. His third heart acupoint had been slightly opened. Ning Fan could clearly feel that the recovery speed of his magic power was getting faster and faster. The heart of an ancient god could not only increase the cultivation level of an ancient god by a few times or even tens of times, but it could also help an ancient god recover their magic power quickly. Currently, Ning Fan was close to opening his third heart acupoint. The recovery speed of his magic power was almost comparable to the recovery speed when he consumed pills in the past. Ning Fan had consumed a lot of his magic power to kill the tiger-headed divine corpse. After his magic power had recovered to its peak state, he used the rain technique in this illusory world and began to search for the whereabouts of the other 3 divine corpses. Ning Fan stood still in the drizzle for a long time and found out the location of the 3 divine corpses. The dragon-horned divine corpse was hiding in a barren forest. The flaming-winged divine corpse was hiding in the crater of a volcano. The tortoise-shelled divine corpse was hiding in a huge swamp. After pondering for a moment, Ning Fan flew towards the huge swamp where the tortoise-shelled divine corpse was hiding. 10 days later, Ning Fan left the huge swamp and headed towards the direction of the flaming-winged divine corpse. 1 month later, Ning Fan walked out of the barren forest where the dragon-horned divine corpse was hiding. Another month later, Ning Fan successfully killed the dragon-horned divine corpse. These divine corpses with 3 orifices were not weak. All of them had a cultivation base comparable to the early Crossing Truth realm. However, they had already grown fearful of Ning Fan, which greatly reduced their combat power. Therefore, it was not difficult for them to divide and conquer them. The 4 divine corpses were killed by Ning Fan one after another. The illusory realm was then destroyed. On the 7-pointed star sacrificial altar, Ning Fan was as still as a mountain. His third heart orifice was about to open. At this moment, a vortex seemed to have formed in his heart. Traces of magic power were being produced from that vortex. That vortex was called the heart origin. It was the source of the ancient god's heart. Only 3 orifices ancient gods could open their heart origin. Once they opened their heart origin, their magic power would be doubled. The magic power of second-step cultivators would flow through their immortal veins and be stored in their primordial spirit in their dantian. To 3 orifices ancient gods, the divine heart that had opened its heart origin was equivalent to another container for magic power. It could contain the same amount of magic power as the primordial spirit. The 3rd heart orifice was opening and stabilizing bit by bit. The heart origin was constantly producing magic power. The bottleneck of the mid-ghost profound realm was also breaking through bit by bit. The 3 deities were watching Ning Fan from the side. The astonishment in their eyes became more and more obvious. They could clearly feel that the ancient god Qi on Ning Fan's body had almost reached the 3rd aperture realm. It was extremely powerful. It was not something that they who had just opened their half-aperture realm could contend against. This young man has succeeded in refining his crystal. Not long after he opened the 2nd heart orifice, he actually opened the 3rd heart orifice. The 3 deities muttered to themselves in disbelief. He had heard from his master that it was not easy to open the 3rd heart orifice even in the era of the ancient gods. To the ancient gods, the 1st heart orifice was just considered as the entry point. The 2nd heart orifice was just considered as the foundation building. The 3rd heart orifice was extremely difficult to open. That was why he was not that shocked when he saw Ning Fan opening the 2nd heart orifice. However, when he saw Ning Fan opening the 3rd heart orifice, he could not help but feel astonished. A 3 orifices ancient god with 8 times the speed of magic power increase. With the help of 3 heart orifices, Ning Fan's future was naturally limitless. Bang! Suddenly, a loud sound came from Ning Fan's body, startling the 3 deities. Large patches of divine light emerged from Ning Fan's body. Ning Fan sat cross-legged on the ground and closed his eyes without saying a word. He looked like an ancient god. At this moment, Ning Fan's 3rd heart orifice was completely opened. His cultivation base had finally broken through to the mid-ghost profound realm. The upper limit of Ning Fan's magic power was already higher than ordinary people. After breaking through to the mid-ghost profound realm, the amount of magic power in his primordial spirit was comparable to that of a peak ghost profound realm cultivator. Now that he had opened the heart origin, Ning Fan's magic power had doubled. The total amount of magic power in his body was not any weaker than Sun Yan's in the past. Even though his cultivation base had yet to reach the true crossing realm, his magic power had already reached the true crossing realm. In the illusory realm of his mind, Ning Fan had spent several months to kill all the divine corpses. However, in the outside world, only the time it takes for an incense stick to burn had passed. After withdrawing the divine light around his body and opening his eyes, Ning Fan stood up. When he sensed the vastness of his magic power, he could not help but nod in satisfaction. Currently, he was already a 3 orifices ancient god, a mid-ghost profound realm cultivator. His magic power was comparable to an ordinary true crossing realm cultivator. This trip to the Quicksand Star region was not in vain. The opportunities he had were indeed great. Of course, there were also many dangers. Ning Fan's eyes turned solemn. He did not forget that he was currently following behind Sun Luo and accompanying him in his madness. Sun Luo was a madman. Although there were many opportunities following behind him, there were also many dangers. A moment of carelessness just now had caused his ancient devil puppet to be severely damaged. If he were to be careless again, he might even lose his life. Oh? You've opened the 3rd heart orifice? Very good. If that's the case, it's enough for me to have you as the vessel for my ancient god power. I don't need these 3 inferior vessels anymore. Suddenly, a cold voice resounded on the 7-pointed star altar. It was Sun Luo's voice. At the same time, the remaining ancient god power on the 7-pointed star altar flowed into Ning Fan's divine heart. As for the ancient god power that was originally stored in the bodies of the 3 divine beings, it was also transferred to Ning Fan's body. Sun Luo's body contained half of the Quicksand ancestors' divine power while Ning Fan also contained half of it. Sen Luo relied on his cultivation base while Ning Fan relied on his ancient god heart orifice. When the ancient god power flowed into his divine heart, Ning Fan did not resist. Since he had promised to be Sen Luo's vessel for his divine power, he would not go back on his words. He only hoped that Sen Luo would fulfill his promise and cure the little demoness of her poison. The scenery in front of him suddenly changed. Ning Fan could feel a powerful divine ability that was moving him to another place. After a few breaths, Ning Fan left the seven-pointed star altar and appeared in a world filled with twinkling starlight. This place is... Ning Fan's eyes turned cold. He had some guesses but also some disbelief. This is my divine star space. The star you are on is the 9th star in my glabella. You can see the scenery of the outside world from here. If necessary, you can even help me in a battle. You can make fireworks for me here. Of course, you can also comprehend my Tao of Void here. Sen Luo's cold voice resounded in Ning Fan's ears, confirming his guess. This place was indeed Sen Luo's divine star space. Moreover, it was where Sen Luo's strongest star was located, the 9th star. This place was filled with Sen Luo's divine ability and Tao power. In this place, Ning Fan could feel the Tao of Void in Sen Luo's 9th star without any reservations. However, Ning Fan could not believe that Sen Luo would actually keep him in his divine star space without any worries. Divine star, demon star and devil star. Ning Fan had already stopped cultivating them a long time ago. To cultivators of the divine Tao, cultivating divine stars was the best way to increase their strength. The divine star was located in the glabella of a profound cultivator. Normally, only profound cultivators at the nascent soul realm could cultivate the first divine star. At the divine transformation realm, they could cultivate the second, the void refinement realm, the third and the void fragmentation realm. At the extreme life immortal realm, they could cultivate the 5th divine star. At the Dujin realm, Shikong realm and broken thought realm, they could cultivate the 6th, 7th and 8th divine stars respectively. Only at the eternal ancient realm could they cultivate the 9th divine star. Divine stars could nurture divine abilities. Many profound cultivators' trump cards required divine stars to perform their techniques. Ning Fan's knowledge was vast and varied. He did not cultivate many divine stars. As for Sen Luo, he cultivated them step by step. The 9th star was condensed after Sen Luo's immemorial time. The divine ability it contained was Sen Luo's star burial technique. Ning Fan stood on the 9th star of Sen Luo. Countless light balls that were engraved with flowing shadows were floating in the air. Ning Fan casually summoned a light ball and held it in his hand. Then he spread his spirit sense into the light ball and read the information in it. These light balls contain the entire process of Sen Luo Immortal King's cultivation of the star burial technique. They also contained his comprehension towards the Tao of the Void. Ning Fan would definitely obtain great benefits from browsing through these light balls. He could not believe that Sen Luo, who was cold and indifferent, would give him such a great opportunity to comprehend the Tao of the Void for no reason. Not far away from him stood an oval blood-red star door. Once he stepped through this door, he would be able to leave this starry space and return to the outside world to regain his freedom. Through this door, he could see everything that was happening in the outside world. Ning Fan's vigilance gradually rose. He had a feeling that Sen Luo had an ulterior motive for doing this. Just as you expected, I didn't give this 9th star to you for nothing. I want to use this Tao comprehension to exchange for one of your divine abilities. Sen Luo's voice resounded again. Exchange for my divine ability? Ning Fan was surprised. That's right. I want to use my comprehension here to exchange for your Spirit Blast technique. Spirit Blast technique? Ning Fan was stunned. After remaining silent for a while, he suddenly patted his storage pouch and took out a jade slip. Then he engraved the Spirit Blast technique into it. Just as the jade slip was engraved, blood-red starlight flashed and the jade slip vanished into thin air. Sen Luo had taken it away. In the void outside, Sen Luo was browsing through the jade slip in his hand while traveling across star regions. After a long time, he nodded with satisfaction and said, Not a bad divine ability. As long as there are enough primordial spirits of cultivators, even the Divine Void Emperor and the Divine Void Emperor would find it hard to resist this technique. I didn't expect that when I was imprisoned in the heavenly prison, there was actually a junior in the Eastern Heaven who had created such a mysterious divine ability. Bang! Having comprehended the essence of this technique, Sun Luo crushed the jade slip in his hand. His eyes flashed with a cold light. Suddenly, he stopped outside a star region where the cold wind was blowing. It was an imperial star region in the Eastern Heaven immortal world called the Nine Nether Star region. The strongest force in this star region was the Nine Nether sect. Behind the Nine Nether sect was a Sixth Tribulation immortal emperor, Great Sovereign Nine Nether. Currently, Ning Fan was hiding in Sun Luo's ninth star. Through the star door not far away, he could clearly see the Nine Nether Star region in the outside world. The location of the Nine Nether Star region was completely different from the Eastern Sea Star region where the Godly Void Pavilion was located. Ning Fan recognized the Nine Nether Star region. His eyes could not help but reveal a hint of confusion. It seems like this Sun Luo Immortal King isn't in a hurry to go to the Eastern Sea Star region. He actually changed his route and came to this Nine Nether Star region. I wonder what is his purpose for coming here. Ning Fan shook his head. He released the little demoness from the Yuan Yao world and placed her flat on the ground. Seeing that the little demoness was still sleeping peacefully and the remaining poison in her body had yet to be cured, Ning Fan could not help but sigh. Then, he sat down cross-legged on the ground again and took out a lot of materials to make fireworks in the mortal world. He did not forget that Sun Luo also gave him another task, which was to make fireworks. His hands did not stop making fireworks. His eyes, however, were fixed outside the star door, observing Sun Luo's every move. He saw Sun Luo standing outside the Nine Nether Star region for a long time. At first, his eyes were filled with nostalgia. In the end, his gaze became colder and colder. All of a sudden, he raised his hand and pressed one of his fingers at the Nine Nether Star region. As soon as he pressed his finger, the grand formation of the entire Nine Nether Star region shattered. The sound of it collapsing shocked all the second-step cultivators in the entire star region. On the Nine Nether Star, at the bottom of an icy abyss, an old man wearing a purple python robe suddenly opened his silver pupils. His eyes were filled with disbelief as he exclaimed, "It's Sun Luo! He's actually not dead yet." Without any hesitation, the purple-robed old man suddenly rose to his feet. His body swayed and covered the sky with divine light. In an instant, he disappeared from the icy abyss and reappeared in the vast starry sky. This person stood in the starry sky, causing the galaxies to tremble. Suddenly, an incomparably gigantic golden shadow appeared behind him. It was the shadow of an emperor. This person was the emperor of the Nine Nether Star region, the Nine Nether Great Emperor. However, the eyes of the Nine Nether Great Emperor, who was supposed to be high and mighty, were filled with incomparable solemnity and fear. He stared at the blood-haired man in the void space in front of him as if he was facing a formidable enemy. "Luo Jiao, in the past you followed Emperor Shen's space and ambushed me with a finger. Today, I will return the favor." The corner of Sun Luo's mouth curved into a cold smile. He suddenly raised his hand and pressed his finger down at the Nine Nether Great Emperor. This finger contained the monstrous devil intent of the Sun Luo Immortal King. It was as if he wanted to refine everything in front of him into that finger of darkness. The moment the Sun Luo Immortal King displayed this technique, a gigantic shadow of a black sun suddenly appeared behind him. It emitted an evil black light. At the moment the Sun Luo Immortal King raised his finger, the Nine Nether Great Emperor's face suddenly turned pale. This is the Dark Obsidian Finger, the Emperor technique of the Dark race that is not passed down to others. Only a few immortal emperors of the Dark race can learn it. How did you obtain this technique? Could it be that you are so audacious as to kill an immortal emperor of the Dark race and snatch this technique? You're a madman. How dare you touch a member of the 10 great secret races? Before his voice died away, the Nine Nether Great Emperor turned around and tried to flee. Even though he was a 6th Tribulation Immortal Emperor whose cultivation realm was higher than Sun Luo, who was a 5 Tribulation Immortal King, he knew how strong Sun Luo was and how vicious the Dark Obsidian Finger was. Sun Luo's finger was definitely enough to severely injure him. Dark Race. Emperor Technique. Dark Obsidian Finger. On the 9th star, Ning Fan witnessed everything that was happening in the outside world. His heart was in turmoil. It was his first time hearing about the 10 great secret races. It turned out that there was a race called the Dark Race among the 10 great secret races. It was his first time seeing Sun Luo display the Dark Obsidian Finger. He felt that this ability was extremely evil and its power was even more terrifying. Ning Fan could not help but raise his hand and imitate the Tao essence of Sun Luo's Dark Obsidian Finger. However, he could not replicate the essence of that finger no matter how hard he tried in the outside world. When Sun Luo saw the 9 Nether Great Emperor turning around to flee, he let out a disdainful snort. Then, he pressed his finger even faster. "You can't escape." Chapter 782. You Can't Escape. Sun Luo let out a cold snort and pressed his finger even faster. The giant black sun behind him shattered into countless black flames that turned into countless black fire crows. The fire crows all gathered together and let out ominous cries. They formed a giant finger that was even larger than a low-rank star system. It was filled with evil energy and pressed down toward 9 Nether Emperor. The finger was covered in black flames. The black flames weren't real flames but formed by the power of extreme darkness. The dark aura that came from the giant finger quickly spread to the dozens of planets. The creatures on those planets immediately melted into black blood. In the end, even those cultivation planets collapsed. The thousands of cultivation planets in the distance were affected by the evil aura. Their spiritual energy became polluted and the cultivators' cultivation levels began to drop. At this moment, countless cultivators in the 9 Nether Star system revealed expressions of fear. They could feel that a peerless powerhouse was using a destructive spell in the 9 Nether Star system. All the ice in the 9 Nether Star system melted into black water at this moment. Endless black gas came from the giant finger and swept toward 9 Nether Emperor. The 9th Underworld Emperor was greatly shocked. He knew how terrifying and vicious the luminous finger was. It was capable of harming one's cultivation and ruining one's Tao, and it wasn't something he could go against. If he were to suffer this finger, then his cultivation would definitely suffer a great loss, so it was best to avoid this finger. He waved his hand and tore open a silver ice door before him. He stepped inside and disappeared without a trace. The giant finger trembled and shattered countless cracks in the void before disappearing without a trace. A moment later, the entire 9 Nether Star system began to tremble violently. Following that, countless spatial cracks exploded in the starry sky, and countless icy ravines extended wildly in the starry sky. In the end, there was a loud bang and a silver ice door appeared out of nowhere. As soon as the silver ice gate appeared, it immediately exploded into countless ice shards. A purple-robed old man in ragged clothes fell out with a black aura covering his face. His complexion was extremely weak. Not only was his cultivation greatly damaged, almost falling from the Emperor realm, even one of his arms had been strangely cut off from the crook of his arm. Black blood flowed out from the cut. The 9th Nether Great Sovereign, the 6th Tribulation of all eternity, was actually severely injured by a single finger of the Sun Luo Immortal King. Ning Fan's face was filled with astonishment as he witnessed everything in front of him from the 9th star. Sun Luo's strength was still beyond Ning Fan's estimation. The Netherworld Great Emperor, a 6th Tribulation Immortal Emperor, was no match for Sun Luo. The 9 Nether Emperor's face was ashen as he coughed. He looked at Sun Luo with deep fear in his eyes. After that fear, there was also a hint of viciousness. There were too many grievances between him and Sun Luo, so it was unlikely for them to be on good terms. A battle was unavoidable. With a resolute look in his eyes, he placed his remaining hand on his storage bag and took out a huge silver-colored dragon skeleton. He raised it into the air. It was the dragon skeleton of a demon dragon that had fallen countless years ago. Judging from the chi of this dragon skeleton, this dragon's cultivation base was at least at the 6th tribulation realm. The 9 Nether Emperor's eyes flashed with ruthlessness. He wanted to use this dragon skeleton to summon the remnant soul of this demon dragon and join forces with it to fight against Sinluo. He changed his hand seal and the dragon skeleton began to move with a cracking sound, emitting a frosty dragon's breath. 2 balls of silver flames suddenly flashed in his empty eye sockets. He glared at Sinluo fiercely and suddenly let out a dragon roar that shocked the entire star region. As soon as the dragon roar was heard, a huge sea of rainbow-colored lightning immediately appeared in the starry sky. Countless rainbow-colored lightning zigzagged like snakes and struck at Sinluo with thunderous roars. The remains of a flowing dragon? When Qinyu was still alive, she had once praised the holiness and beauty of the flowing dragon. The flowing dragon was the most beautiful type of dragon among the demons of the dragon clan. I didn't expect that it was just an ugly skeleton after its death. Sinluo's usual cold eyes flashed with nostalgia again. Then, his lips curled into a disdainful smile. He looked at the sea of lightning in the sky and didn't run or avoid it. He raised his hand and a small axe immediately appeared in his hand. The entire axe was transparent as if it was carved from a blood-colored crystal. There was a poem carved on the small axe. The words were rough and wild. It was Sinluo's handwriting, but the poem was graceful and elegant. It was definitely not something that Sinluo could write. The first flower is good, don't teach me to hate Xiao Xiao. The second full moon, don't teach me to let down Chanwan. The best is for a good family to be happy together. This life and this night, Chang. It was a poem that was casually recited by a woman. It was carved on Sinluo's axe and also in Sinluo's heart. However, the Xiao Xiao she was waiting for was not him. However, he couldn't give her Chang. The only thing he could do was to make everyone who had let her down pay the price. The blood-colored axe in his hand suddenly became huge. It was as tall as a person and was firmly held in Sinluo's hand. That blood-colored axe was his Dao weapon. The name of the axe was Chang Tseng. At this moment, the reminiscence in Sinluo's eyes turned into anger and madness. He roared towards the heavens. If I don't give you 10,000 green leaves, I will make them wither for a lifetime. From now on, eastern sky can forget about having a good time. If I don't give you a bright moon, I will make it forever incomplete. From now on, eastern sky can forget about having a full moon. I will make rivers of blood flow in the divine void realm. I will make sky prison never have peace. I will make eastern sky never have Chang. Facing the sea of thunder, Sinluo's axe chopped down. The axe light flashed and the boundless blood-colored flames immediately spread out along with the axe light like a swimming dragon, swallowing up the sea of thunder. The first axe strike destroyed the sea of thunder. Sinluo raised his hand and raised the axe again. Without any hesitation, he chopped down at the broken bone of the flowing dragon. With the second axe strike, the empty starry sky was immediately split in two by the blood-colored axe light. Large swathes of the starry sky collapsed. The broken bone of the flowing dragon was struck by the axe light. It immediately let out a heaven-shaking scream. Within the blood-colored light, it shattered into countless pieces of bone powder. 9th Nether Emperor was shocked. He never thought that Sinluo would take out the Chang, an axe against him. He and Sinluo had been friends for countless years, so he had a good understanding of Sinluo's various supernatural powers. Chang, an axe, Chang, an axe. 9th Nether Emperor understood Sinluo. He knew that if he took out this axe, he must be determined to kill the enemy. The Chang, an axe, was a ferocious Dao weapon. Every attack needed to consume Sinluo's blood essence in order to display 100% of its power. And once it was taken out, it would be difficult to put it back into one's body without killing the enemy and drinking the enemy's blood. Back then, this old man only sneak attacked him once, and he actually wants to kill this old man? 9th Nether Emperor was shocked. Seeing Sinluo raise the axe again and chopping down in his direction for the third time, 9th Nether Emperor gritted his teeth. His figure flashed and turned into millions of silver flowing lights that fled in millions of directions. These millions of flowing lights were his unique escape technique. Logically speaking, only one of them was his real body. At this moment, Ninth Nether Emperor was heavily injured by the luminous finger, and his cultivation was greatly damaged. He wasn't a match for Sun Luo in the first place, and he was even less of a match for Sun Luo now. Moreover, when he saw Sun Luo take out the Chong and axe, he naturally didn't dare to face it head-on. Sun Luo sneered without end as he looked at Ninth Nether Emperor, who was escaping by trick. He didn't stop the millions of flowing lights from fleeing, and the light of the axe slanted and chopped down towards an empty place. As the axe chopped down, the river of stars instantly collapsed, and an extremely sorry figure fell out from the cracks. Shockingly, it was Ninth Nether Emperor. Ninth Nether Emperor didn't hide in the flowing light at all. Instead, he slyly hid here and prepared to stay here to watch. If there was a chance, he would wait for an opportunity to sneak attack Sun Luo. Those millions of flowing lights were just a distraction. Even though this person's idea was good, he was unfortunately seen through by Sun Luo, and he immediately coughed up blood and retreated in the starry sky. After he stabilized his figure with great difficulty, there wasn't a single piece of uninjured flesh on his body, and he was covered in wounds left by the bloody axe light. Sun Luo. In any case, I've known you for many years. In the past, I was just blinded by greed and sneakily attacked you with one finger. Do you really want to fight to the death with me? Ninth Nether Emperor roared furiously. Luo Jiao, you've injured my finger. Considering our past friendship, I'll only return you one finger and let it go. However, you shouldn't have drunk that bowl of primordial spirit wine. Since you've betrayed me, I'll cut off all ties with you. Since you've injured Qinyu, I'll turn you into ashes. Heaven's sealing technique. Sun Luo was so angry that he laughed. He suddenly raised his hand and pointed a finger at Ninth Nether Emperor. Countless black lines in the void immediately fixed Ninth Nether Emperor in the starry sky. Ning Fan's eyes were filled with surprise. He never expected that Sun Luo would actually know how to use the heaven sealing technique. When he took a closer look, he realized that the heaven sealing technique was just a pseudo-divine ability that Sun Luo imitated. It wasn't the real heaven sealing technique. Only then did his astonishment lessen. Being fixed in the starry sky by Sun Luo, the Ninth Nether Emperor had nowhere to run or hide. He couldn't even move or resist. He was greatly shocked. Impossible. What you've just used is obviously not the real heaven sealing technique. How can it actually stop me? So what if it's not the orthodox technique? Sun Luo let out a cold snort. He pinned Ninth Nether Emperor with one of his fingers while holding the axe in his other hand. 1 axe, 2 axes, 3 axes, 10 axes, 100 axes, 1,000 axes. One after another, the axes that shook the entire galaxy landed on Ninth Nether Emperor's body, constantly creating destructive waves. Ninth Nether Emperor's injuries became more and more severe. His physical body gradually collapsed, leaving only his golden primordial spirit. The reason why his primordial spirit was golden was because it was protected by his Emperor Qi. Even though the axes were powerful and kept severely injuring and weakening the power of Ninth Nether Emperor's primordial spirit, it still couldn't completely destroy this golden primordial spirit. Witnessing this scene, Ning Fan was deeply shocked. He had once read from an ancient book that immortal emperors who had emperor shadows could rely on their Emperor Qi to protect their primordial spirit. They were indestructible and difficult to kill. Even though Ninth Nether Emperor was no match for Sun Luo, it was also difficult for Sun Luo to kill him. Not to mention Sun Luo, even the 2 emperors of the 8th Tribulation of Eternity, the Divine and Void Emperors, could not easily destroy an immortal emperor's primordial spirit. Sun Luo, even though you are strong, you still can't kill me. I advise you to quickly let me go. Otherwise, Ninth Nether Emperor's golden primordial spirit sneered. Just as he was about to threaten him, his expression changed abruptly at the next moment. Luo Jiao, do you really think I can't kill you? The corner of Sun Luo's mouth curved into a mocking smile. He suddenly kept his axe back into his body. Then, he raised his hand and made a grabbing motion in the direction of Ninth Nether Emperor. This grab contained the power of the void which Sun Luo was famous for and the power of time which he obtained from the flowing sand primogenic. When the power of time and the power of the void intersected, time and space seemed to have frozen at this moment. The Tao of life and death, the Tao of true void and the Tao of time and space. After that, it was samsara. Along the way, Sun Luo had comprehended life and death in the first step of cultivation. In the second step of cultivation, he comprehended the true void, comprehended the power of space and obtained the power of time. At this moment, his hand was actually surrounded by a genuine power of samsara. Unlike the power of samsara which Ning Fan had just obtained, this power of samsara was powerful and terrifying. It was enough to wipe out Ninth Nether Emperor's primordial spirit. Therefore, Ninth Nether Emperor really began to feel fear. Samsara. Power of samsara. This is the legendary power that only saints at the third step of Tao cultivation can master. How can you display it? Impossible. This is absolutely impossible. Ninth Nether Emperor roared in shock and fear. You don't need to know. Destroy. Sun Luo clenched his fist fiercely. 5 rays of samsara finger light immediately turned into claw shadows, tearing the starry sky and shredding Ninth Nether Emperor's primordial spirit with ease. On this day, in the Eastern Heaven Immortal World, a great emperor whose name shook the entire galaxy fell in Sun Luo's hands. However, Ninth Nether Emperor was not the only great emperor who fell in the chaos of Eastern Heaven this time. After killing Ninth Nether Emperor, Sun Luo stood in the 9 Nether Star region for a long time. However, he did not start a massacre in this star region. He raised his hand and sucked the fragments of Ninth Nether Emperor's golden primordial spirit into his hand. After studying them carefully, he shook his head and said, "Even though the Spirit Blast technique is amazing, it can't use the primordial spirit of immortal emperors as a catalyst. Even though this technique is powerful, it still has its limits. Luo Jiao, even though you have betrayed me and even hurt Qianyu, your brother has died in order to save me. Regarding the grudge between you and me, I will only kill you alone. I won't implicate your clansmen." As soon as he finished speaking, Sun Luo swallowed those primordial spirit fragments and suddenly turned around, flying in another direction. It was a rampage, a complete rampage. After traveling in the starry sky for an unknown period of time, Sun Luo stopped at another star region. Imperial Star Region, Zhenyuan Star Region. Outside this star region, a grand formation had already been set up and countless experts were guarding it. At the center of those experts stood a white-browed child. He was dressed in a Taoist robe and his aura force was terrifying. He was actually another immortal emperor who had passed the 6th tribulation. "I heard that you killed Ninth Nether Emperor. Is that true?" The white-browed child snorted coldly and asked Sun Luo angrily. Obviously, he had already obtained all kinds of information about Sun Luo. However, deep down he still did not believe it. Sun Luo sneered. He did not answer him directly. Instead, he raised one of his hands and swiped across the void space. Layers of cold qi immediately appeared in the void space. Within the cold qi, an extremely cold silver sword floated in front of Sun Luo. This sword was not a precious Tao weapon but a manifestation of a divine ability. This technique was one of Ninth Nether Emperor's trump cards, the Dark Eye Sword. Unfortunately, before Sun Luo, the Ninth Hell Emperor didn't even have the chance to execute this technique before perishing with hatred in his heart. Ning Fan's eyes became more and more solemn as he observed the sword in the 9th star sphere. He felt that this sword was extremely cold. A single strike from it was enough to freeze an entire mid-grade star region. However, he did not know that this technique was Ninth Nether Emperor's divine ability. The white-browed child, on the other hand, knew about this technique. As soon as he saw Sun Luo display Ninth Nether Emperor's divine ability, he immediately revealed an extremely shocked expression. "You really killed Ninth Nether Emperor and devoured his primordial spirit with the Tao seizing from the void technique and seized his divine ability and secret technique. Impossible. You're just an immortal king. How could you destroy an immortal emperor's primordial spirit? What answered the white-browed child was rays of cold sword light. Without saying anything, Sun Luo directly held the dark ice sword and pointed it at the Zhenyuan star region. All of a sudden, the Zhenyuan star region began to freeze. Countless cultivators who were guarding outside the star region were directly frozen to death. In the 9 Nether Star region, Sun Luo still gave some face to the cultivators of the star region because he was 9th Nether Emperor's elder brother. However, in this place, he did not need to show any mercy to anyone. Hand over the 12 heaven-piercing arrows and I can spare your life. Otherwise die. Sun Luo stared at the white-browed child coldly. The white-browed child's name was Great Emperor Zhenyuan. He was one of the 16 emperors of Eastern Heaven who guarded the Zhenyuan star region. Chapter 783. Did you come here to snatch the sky-piercing arrow? The white-browed boy gradually put away his surprise and sneered disdainfully. With a fierce flick of his sleeve, the sword light and frost that had been spreading through the starry sky were collected. He raised his hand again, and a black and blue array diagram appeared. In the next instant, thousands of immortal cultivators immediately surrounded Sun Luo with array flags in hand. The immortals waved the array flags and immediately triggered the power of the starry sky to set up another boundless array diagram. A tree grew out of the diagram, and the tree turned into thousands of strands of blue light that trapped Sun Luo inside the array light. Green wisteria with barbs grew out of the array light continuously and swept toward Sun Luo. This array light was no weaker than the black prison barrier that Sun Luo had used to imprison the divine void emperors. Mysterious Pine 8 Array Diagram. Sun Luo frowned slightly and then snorted coldly. He dispersed the dark ice sword divine ability, and boundless blood flames appeared around him to burn the green wisteria that tried to get close to him. His red hair danced wildly. Killing Emperor Juyo was an old grudge. He didn't have any old grudges with Emperor Zhenyuan, but he had heard that the sky-piercing arrow was extremely sharp and could break congenital treasures and the defense of an immortal emperor, which might help his plan. Sun Luo knew that Emperor Zhenyuan was proficient in a primordial spirit life-saving secret technique. Given his strength, it wouldn't be hard for him to defeat Zhenyuan, but killing him would be as difficult as ascending to the heavens. The sky-piercing arrow was a supreme treasure that Emperor Zhenyuan had refined for many years, so he naturally wouldn't give it to Sun Luo for nothing. Sun Luo understood that if he didn't beat Zhenyuan into fear today, the other party wouldn't obediently hand over the sky-piercing arrow. With a flip of his hand, a blood-colored ring suddenly appeared in Sun Luo's hand. This was a medium-sized domain treasure called the Fiend Ring, which contained a fiend domain. It was covered in seals, and some kind of vicious creature was sealed inside. Fiend domain open. With a cold shout, the ring on Sun Luo's finger immediately emitted a faint blood light, and a giant flaming blood gate appeared out of thin air in the starry sky in front of him. The giant gate was only a third of the way open when it suddenly shattered as if it had been hit by a fierce attack. In the next instant, a black-scaled behemoth with 4 short legs, a huge head, and a purple horn on its head suddenly rushed out of the giant door and appeared in the starry sky. As soon as the beast appeared, it revealed a ferocious glint in its eyes. It swept its surroundings and let out a world-shaking roar. Its aura was comparable to that of a 3-tribulation celestial king. It raised its purple horn and charged furiously at Sun Luo. The sharpness of its purple horn was probably something even some Khanate treasures couldn't compare to. Although it was only a 3rd tribulation celestial king, if its horn collided with a 4th tribulation or 5th tribulation celestial king, it would be enough to injure them. Sun Luo sighed when he saw the violet-horned ink-scaled colossal beast roaring furiously as it charged towards him, but he didn't dodge. He just raised his hand and slapped it towards the ink-scaled colossal beast, forcefully stopping its charge, and feigned indifference as he spoke. You were originally the Shao clan's guardian demonic beast. Back then, I slaughtered the entire Shao clan and forcefully subdued you. It's only natural that you hate me. You attacked me several times, But I didn't pursue the matter because in the entire Shao clan, you were the only one who treated Qinyu well. Today, I came to this star domain to seize the sky-piercing arrow, unseal Qinyu's remnant soul, and fulfill her last wish. Are you willing to help me seize the sky-piercing arrow? After saying this, Sun Luo didn't say anything else. As he casually broke the array light attack in the 8 formation diagram, he looked quietly at the ink-scaled beast. When the vicious beast, which had been roaring furiously, heard Sun Luo's words, the ferocious light in its eyes froze and gradually disappeared. She most likely wants to see you. Are you going to sky prison with me to see her? Sun Luo asked again. Roar, the ink-scaled beast roared, and its eyes were suddenly filled with even more intense fury than before. This fury wasn't directed at Sun Luo. Seeing its expression, Sun Luo knew that the beast had already agreed to help him. Sun Luo nodded in satisfaction and sent a few more telepathic messages to the ink-scaled colossal beast. His gaze swept over the green array light around them, and a cold light gradually appeared in his eyes as he sneered. Zhenyuan, although your primordial mystic soul separation technique is powerful, you might not be able to escape this beast's pursuit. Since you won't hand over the sky-piercing arrow obediently, don't blame me for being ruthless. Emperor technique, space split. Sun Luo abruptly raised his foot and stomped down on the array diagram under his feet. The air around them instantly twisted violently, and then the space around them started to twist as well. Under the extreme distortion, the momentum was thrown into chaos, and the array light collapsed. Sun Luo's hands tore at the air, and the space that couldn't be touched by his hands was like a thin piece of paper as it was torn apart with a hiss. The void was torn to shreds, and the great array completely collapsed. The power of the black and green array diagram was greatly reduced, and it flew back into the white-browed boy's hands. The thousands of immortal cultivators who had set up the array suffered severe backlash and retreated with serious injuries. This is one of the strongest divine abilities of the Void Scripture, the space split technique. Distorting space, forcefully breaking momentum, and even trapping you in the 8 formation diagram. The white-browed boy's eyes were extremely solemn. He put away the black pine 8 formation diagram and took out a navy blue bronze hammer, which he abruptly raised into the sky. The hammer grew with the wind. Once it rose into the air, it immediately shone with divine light and smashed down at Sun Luo with the power of a connate spirit. The fighting hammer. The corners of Sun Luo's eyes narrowed. He abruptly raised his hand and made a grabbing motion with his 5 fingers, and the space twisted once more. The connate hammer's attack was immediately reversed, and it smashed toward countless immortal cultivators on the side. Most of these immortal cultivators were life immortals, but there were also some crossing truth immortals. There were very few skulls, and there were only 3 thought-shattering immortals. When the hammer smashed down, hundreds of life immortals were immediately smashed into meat paste and fell into the starry sky. More than 10 crossing truth immortals died, and 2 skulls lost their bodies, leaving only their primordial spirits. Seeing that so many of his own people had been killed by the hammer, the white-browed boy's face turned extremely ugly. He hurriedly raised his hand to put away the treasure hammer, then took out a golden bow with a golden crystal arrow knocked on it, and aimed at Sun Luo. Sun Luo's space-splitting technique could change the attack direction of most magical treasures, but it certainly couldn't change the direction of this arrow. This arrow was one of the 12 heaven-breaking arrows that Sun Luo had been dreaming of. Without any hesitation, the white-browed boy drew the bow and shot the arrow at Sun Luo. However, a golden light flashed, and the arrow disappeared. Before Sun Luo could react, he felt a pain in his chest. The arrow had already pierced through his dantian and his primordial spirit. Even Sun Luo, who had a cold temperament, couldn't help but be slightly surprised at this moment, and the next moment, that surprise turned into passion. Sure enough, with this arrow, the chance of destroying the bell has increased a bit. This seat is taking this arrow. Soul extraction. Sun Luo raised his head and laughed, then raised his hand to grab the entire galaxy. Extract the soul of the earth, the soul of the void, and the soul of the sun, moon, and stars. Sun Luo's soul extraction technique could only extract star souls, but the star souls he extracted were not from a single cultivation planet, but from countless cultivation planets in the entire Jinyuan star zone. In the entire Eastern Heaven Immortal Realm, there was only one cultivator who could extract the star souls of an entire Imperial Star Zone. After extracting the star souls of the entire Imperial Star Zone, Sun Luo's aura suddenly skyrocketed, and in an instant, his aura reached the realm of the sixth eternal tribulation. Before he extracted the soul of the Imperial Star Zone, he could already kill the ninth Nether Heavenly Emperor. Now that he had used a secret technique, his cultivation had reached the sixth eternal tribulation, and he could even defeat the seventh eternal tribulation cultivators. The white-browed boy in front of him was nothing to be afraid of. Since you don't want to hand over the heaven-breaking arrow, I'll take it by force. At this moment, Sun Luo raised his head and let out a heaven-shaking roar. The blood-red flame around him spread wildly in the starry sky, turning into a blood-red sea of fire. The blood-red sound circle shook fiercely in all directions. Thousands of immortal cultivators who were struck by the blood-red sound circle trembled, and then they let out shrill cries before exploding into clouds of blood mist and perishing. When the demonic roar entered the white-browed boy's ears, it immediately caused him to feel dizzy and tinnitus. His chi and blood were in chaos, and the demonic will invaded his body. He forcefully activated his secret technique to stabilize his aura. Before the white-browed boy could react, he discovered to his shock that Sun Luo had already vanished without a trace. He did not know where he had gone to. Only the ferocious beast that Sun Luo had summoned was still staring at him coldly in the air. Not good. The white-browed boy immediately felt a sense of danger. Without saying a word, his body shook and scattered into 49 rays of divine light that fled in 49 different directions. The ink-scaled behemoth, which had been motionless like a mountain, suddenly shot out divine light from its eyes and swept toward the 49 rays of divine light formed by the white-browed boy. Every time it swept through a ray of divine light, a scream would come from the ray of divine light. 49 shrill cries rang out, and 49 rays of divine light shattered. The white-browed boy's figure shook, and he reappeared in the starry sky in a sorry state. His face was pale and bloodless, and he seemed to be extremely weak. He glared furiously at the ink-scaled behemoth. Once this old man uses the mysterious origin soul separation technique, I can escape from danger. Even an 8 tribulation celestial emperor can't catch me. I didn't expect this technique to be broken by you, you evil creature. So that's how it is. I didn't expect this old man to be blind and not see that you're a destruction beast that has cultivated the destruction divine light. As the white-browed boy spoke, he clenched his fist and punched toward the void to his left. In that direction, Sun Luo suddenly appeared. Without saying a word, he punched out and collided with the white-browed boy's fist. When the fists collided, Sun Luo didn't retreat even half a step, but the white-browed boy coughed out blood and retreated. Sun Luo looked at the unsteady white-browed boy and sneered. His hands tore the space in front of him, and the space immediately distorted. The white-browed boy felt pain all over his body. The distorted space heavily injured his body again. He angrily stared at Sun Luo, who was approaching step by step. Under that anger, there was finally some fear. He could tell that he couldn't win against Sun Luo. If they fought again, he might die at Sun Luo's hands, just like the 9 Nether Emperor. Forget it. I'll give you 6 heaven-piercing arrows. Let me go. If you force me into a corner, I'll fight you to the death. You won't have an easy time either. The white-browed boy gritted his teeth and said, 12 arrows. If you lose one, don't even think about living today. Sun Luo snorted coldly. Do. The white-browed boy glared at Sun Luo. In truth, he still had a life-risking technique that could trade life for life and heavily injure Sun Luo. However, if it was possible, he wouldn't use this life-risking technique. On second thought, even if he lost the heaven-piercing arrows, he could still make more. Although the materials used were all supreme treasures, it was not impossible to make 12 more arrows. If he was killed by Sun Luo for a few heaven-piercing arrows, the loss would outweigh the gain. The white-browed boy gritted his teeth and nodded bitterly. Fine, I can give you all the heaven-piercing arrows, but you have to swear that you will never offend my Jinyuan star area again. As for how you commit crimes in other eastern sky star areas, I won't ask. I don't have the habit of swearing. But if you give me the heaven-piercing arrows, I promise you that I will never offend your Jinyuan star area again, Sun Luo said coldly. He waved his hand to undo the space distortion. Fine. The white-browed boy sighed. He knew that he couldn't force Sun Luo to swear. But he also knew that Sun Luo would never go back on his words. With a flick of his sleeve, 12 small golden needles with hooks appeared in his hand out of nowhere. If one looked closely, they would find that these 12 small needles were miniature versions of the heaven-piercing arrows. The white-browed boy looked at the thin needles in his hand reluctantly. He raised his hand and threw the 12 golden lights to Sun Luo. Sun Luo took the 12 golden lights with a flick of his sleeve. Without saying a word, he moved and stood on the giant head of the ink-scaled behemoth. Qianshuan, let's go to the primal core star area. Roar! The giant beast seemed extremely dissatisfied with Sun Luo calling it that. After all, it was a name given by Qianyu. How could an outsider call it that? Although it was dissatisfied with Sun Luo's title, the giant beast didn't disobey Sun Luo's order. It turned into a streak of light and dashed toward the primal core star area. After Sun Luo and the ink-scaled behemoth left, the periphery of the Jinyuan star area was left with countless ruins, broken corpses, storage bags, broken Dharma treasures, and the white-browed boy who looked worried. The white-browed boy's subordinates were all dead, and he himself was severely injured. He had also lost the heaven-piercing arrows that he had painstakingly refined, but he still managed to keep his life. He was still worried, but when he suddenly heard that Sun Luo wanted to go to the primal core star area, he was immediately shocked. The primal core star area was a superior star area, but it was extremely extraordinary. Although it wasn't an imperial star, there was a secret place called the Supreme Dan Sacred Region. The master of the Supreme Dan Sacred Region was a mysterious great emperor with a strange temperament. He didn't live in the imperial star, but kept a low profile and guarded the Supreme Dan Sacred Region. Few people in the world knew about this person. Only the old monsters of the ancient times had heard of him. This person was a 7 immortal emperor. He rarely fought and was called the Primal Core Great Emperor. He was one of the 16 emperors of the East Sky. Sun Luo is going to look for trouble with the Primal Core Old Man again? I wonder what the outcome of the battle between him and the Primal Core Old Man will be. The white-browed child had the intention to go to the Primal Core star area to take a look and fish in troubled waters. However, he was too heavily injured at the moment. Every time he spoke, he would cough out blood. It seemed like he couldn't get involved in the affairs of the Primal Core star area. Thus, he decided to go into seclusion first. Someone, clean up the battlefield and bury the cultivators who died in battle. The white-browed child gave the battlefield a complicated look and ordered the vast galaxy. Countless subordinates immediately flew out from each of the cultivation planets to carry out the order. As for him, he quietly flew to the Jinyuan star and decided to go into seclusion to heal his injuries. In the 9th star area, Ning Fan was making fireworks while replaying the scenes of the battles between Sun Luo's emperors in his mind. It was a great opportunity for him to observe the battles between Sun Luo and the immortal emperors. It was a great benefit to Ning Fan to increase his experience in fights of magical power. Ning Fan traced the Tao essence of Sun Luo's star souls. Gradually, he understood something. It hurts. The little demoness who had been lying quietly beside him suddenly let out a moan and opened her eyes slightly. The moment she opened her eyes and saw the unfamiliar environment of the 9th star area, she immediately put on an unprecedented vigilance. When she realized that Ning Fan was also beside her, she lowered her vigilance and sat up slightly. Looking at the fireworks on the ground, she asked doubtfully, "Where are we?" "Husband, what are you doing?" "This is the 9th star area of Sun Luo. Many things happened while you were unconscious. I can tell you everything. This is the star area of Sun Luo Immortal King." All of a sudden, the little demoness's black eyes were filled with astonishment. After the initial shock, her face was filled with anger and hatred. Before Ning Fan could explain everything in detail, she suddenly felt a sharp pain from the void poison. Her whole body went limp and she fell on Ning Fan's knees. Her clothes slipped, revealing her snow-white shoulder. Ning Fan immediately reached out his hand and touched her forehead. He felt that it was scalding hot and his face immediately turned gloomy. The void poison had acted up again. Chapter 784. This time, the void poison flared up quickly and violently. The feeling of numbness and powerlessness dissipated in an instant and was replaced by unimaginable pain. At this moment, the little demoness was half leaning in Ning Fan's arms. Her chest was still heaving up and down rapidly. She felt as if every inch of her body was being torn apart by something. In a short period of time, her body was completely soaked in sweat as if she had gone through a catastrophe. The black dress made of Xianne silk clung tightly to her body, outlining her exquisite curves. Every inch of her skin emitted a faint fragrance of tea. This fragrance was left behind by the little demoness when she brewed the tea every day. The fragrance of the tea was somewhat refreshing, causing Ning Fan to be momentarily dazed. It reminded him of the past when he brewed the Qilin tea with the little demoness. The dazed feeling disappeared in an instant and was replaced by nervousness. Ning Fan could not help but hug the little demoness tightly, as if he was worried that she would be tortured to death by the void poison. The delicate body that was within his reach was so cold, as if it would lose all warmth and die at any moment. His magical power crazily entered the little demoness body, as if he wanted to suppress the void poison in her body. Even though he knew that he could not help her suppress the void poison, Ning Fan continued to try. At this moment, the little demoness consciousness was already blurred. In her confusion, she felt as if she had fallen into a bottomless void. It was cold and lonely. Suddenly, a warm magical power entered her body, causing her to wake up slightly. In her daze, she saw Ning Fan's burning eyes looking at her anxiously. In her drowsy state, she gradually felt more comfortable. Gradually, a blood-red light was activated in her body, expelling all the discomfort. 2 hours later, the little demoness woke up from her coma. At this moment, she was lying in Ning Fan's arms with a white satin cloak draped over her body. As for Ning Fan, he was looking at her nervously. When he realized that she had woken up, his expression became slightly better. Luckily, Sun Luo did not lie to me. His finger light really had the miraculous effect of suppressing the void poison. If it wasn't for this finger light, she might have already died from the void poison. Ning Fan heaved a sigh of relief. When he discovered that the little demon girl's void poison was acting up again, his heart was filled with despair because the void poison was too powerful. It was not something he could dispel. Fortunately, Sun Luo had already planted a ray of finger light in the little demon girl's body. Only then did he manage to suppress the poison in the little demon girl's body. In front of the void poison, Ning Fan once again felt how weak he was. This made his confidence that had risen along with his strength gradually recede. Little Fan, you're hugging me so tightly. The little demoness gradually regained her consciousness and calmed her breathing. She smilingly looked at Ning Fan and struggled to get up from his embrace. The moment she sat up, her eyebrows knitted together. She naturally knew why she had fainted. Just because she was poisoned by the void poison, just because the void poison was acting up at this moment. This was the poison accumulated from eating the void fruit for a long period of time. Once it flared up, it would be the end of her life. But to her surprise, it didn't seem to be the first time the void poison in her body acted up. This time, the void poison had clearly acted up, but it was suppressed by another red light in her body. With the intelligence of the little demon girl, countless thoughts came to her mind very quickly. When she first found out that she was in the space of the 9th star of Sun Luo, she lost control of her emotions and was slightly at a loss. But after being disturbed by the void poison, her heart calmed down. Her eyes were like water as she carefully examined the red light in her body. After falling into the black hole, she had been unconscious. She didn't know when this red light appeared in her body. In this red light, there was an indescribable void Dao rhyme, which was enough to temporarily suppress the void poison. In this red light, there was Sin Luo's qi. Obviously, it was Sin Luo who helped her to suppress the void poison. One should know that even the Divine Void Emperor and Divine Void Emperor were powerless to suppress the void poison. However, Sin Luo was able to suppress the poison, which really surprised the little demon girl. What surprised her even more was that Sin Luo, who had always been indifferent to others, actually showed mercy and saved her. Sin Luo, Immortal King, is a great enemy of the Divine Void Emperor and a powerful devil of the Eastern Heaven. With his position, it's impossible for him to save me for no reason. There must be a reason why he helped me suppress the void poison. Could it be that all of this is related to little Fan Fan? The little demon girl's black gemstone flashed slightly. She seemed to have come to a conclusion. Suddenly, she asked with a faint smile. Little Fan Fan, was it you who asked Sin Luo, Immortal King, to help me suppress the void poison? Ning Fan nodded his head, answering the little demoness question. He released his medicine soul power and confirmed that the little demon girl was fine after the void poison flared up. Then he heaved a sigh of relief. After thinking for a while, he decided to simplify the things that happened to her after she fell unconscious. Mu Tu, the three gods, Sin Luo, the flowing sand primogenitor's heart, the death of the Nine Nether Emperor and the severe injuries of Emperor Jin Yuan. Other than breaking through to the three-aperture ancient god realm, Ning Fan also told her everything about being the ancient god's vessel. Ning Fan's narration was not fast. While he was talking, he was making fireworks. When he finished telling her everything, he put down the last fireworks in his hand. There were about a few thousand fireworks on the ground. It was more or less enough for Sin Luo. After keeping all the fireworks on the ground into his storage pouch, Ning Fan shifted his gaze to the side. Only then did he notice that the little demon girl was staring at him blankly without saying a word. In the space of the ninth star, the starlight spiraled in the air like a tassel. Under the starlight, the little demon girl's eyes were still a little dazed and she was at a loss. Ning Fan's words really shocked her. Whether it was the fall of the Nine Nether Great Emperor or the conspiracy of Sin Luo, all of them shocked her. However, what she found the most unbelievable was that Ning Fan actually made a deal with Sin Luo in order to cure her of the poison. He became the vessel for Sin Luo's ancient god power and made fireworks for him. In 7 Apricot City, during the auction of the Godly Void Pavilion, she peeked at him from the crowd, but her heart had never been moved. Outside the Heaven Separation sect, she giggled and asked him to hug her. Otherwise, she would expose his secret. At that moment, her heart was not moved at all. She left the rain world and returned. When they met again, she gradually lost her heart after a cup of tea. They were called Dao companions in the demon world. In the immemorial abyss, she lost her virginity again. Even though it was a dream, how could it not be real? When they met again in the Eastern Heaven, it was the calamity of the flowing sand star region. He killed Sun Yan for her. After that, he made a deal with Sin Luo in order to cure her of the poison. At this moment, how could she not be shocked? How could she not be moved? It should be said that in her seemingly respectable life, there was no one else who treated her with such sincerity like Ning Fan. She who had always been good at disguising her true feelings with a smile was now at a loss because of her emotions. She lost her usual sense of propriety. For a moment, she was speechless and did not know what to say. Be it the Eastern Heaven Demoness or the Divine Void Young Lord, she was just a woman after all. There would always be times when she would be at a loss. Ning Fan could not help but laugh. It was his first time seeing the little demon girl in such a daze. She did not have her usual craftiness and quick-wittedness. He was really not used to it. However, when he thought of the reason why she was poisoned, he frowned again. He opened his mouth and was about to ask her why she ate the void fruit. Before he could ask the question, the little demoness had already seen through his thoughts and interrupted him. "Little Fan Fan, do you have something to ask me?" The little demon girl calmed her mind and revealed a playful smile again. She asked with a beaming smile. "Yes." "Sorry, I have no comment on your question. The little demon girl raised the corner of her mouth and added, "You helped me suppress the void poison. I am very grateful. The question you want to ask me, I can more or less guess it. It is just that the matter of eating the void fruit involves the secrets of the divine void pavilion and is of great importance. I cannot tell you anything related to this matter. Even if you ask, it would be a waste of time. Have you heard of the divine void pavilion's strongest intent restriction, the Eastern profound God restriction?" The little demon girl smiled and pointed at the space between her eyebrows. There was a bit of helplessness in her smile. When Ning Fan heard the words Eastern profound God restriction, he first revealed a shocked expression. Then, he reached out his palm and caressed the little demon girl's forehead. His eyes suddenly widened with hidden anger. After a long time, he withdrew his palm. The anger in his eyes became even more intense as he coldly said, "Eastern profound God restriction. What a good Eastern profound God restriction." It was not that Ning Fan did not get angry, but at this time he was truly enraged. According to Ning Fan's perception, the little demon girl's sea of consciousness was planted with an extremely powerful restriction. Once the little demon girl revealed any great secrets of the divine void realm, or if someone searched the little demon girl's memories, it would trigger the restriction. Even if the little demon girl had the slightest thought of betraying the restriction, she would also be attacked by the restriction. At that time, the little demon girl's sea of consciousness would instantly burn into ashes. Her primordial spirit would also instantly vanish. Ning Fan had never thought that the young master of the godly void pavilion, who seemed to have a respectable status, would actually be planted with such a vicious and famous restriction. Eastern profound God restriction. The strongest intent restriction in the four heavens. It was one of the supreme secret techniques of the divine void pavilion. It was also a supreme divine ability of the immortal emperor level. This technique had always been in the hands of the divine void emperor, but why would it be planted on the little demon girl? It seemed that the little demon girl's situation in the divine void pavilion was not as good as he imagined. The so-called divine void young master actually received such treatment. His mind suddenly recalled Sin Luo's words. Ning Fan's heart sank as he asked, "I heard from Sin Luo that your identity is a sacrificial offering of the divine void. What is a sacrificial offering?" Hearing that Ning Fan knew that she was a sacrificial offering, the little demon girl's expression immediately became a bit unnatural. However, she still smiled and pointed at the space between her eyebrows and answered, "This topic." Ning Fan's eyes changed. He was even more certain that the little demon girl's life in the divine void pavilion was not good. Even though there were countless doubts in his heart, he was unable to seek answers from the little demon girl's mouth. After thinking for a bit, Ning Fan asked a few more questions. As long as the questions were related to the secrets of the divine void pavilion, the little demon girl could not answer them. There were even many questions related to the little demon girl herself that she could not answer. If he forcefully answered, he would turn into ashes. Ning Fan sighed and did not continue asking questions. He fell into a short period of silence. After a moment of silence, he suddenly raised his palm and stroked the little demon girl's long hair. He firmly said, "You can't answer me these questions. I have my own methods to find out the answer. Master once taught me a sentence. Do you know what it is?" "Your master? Han Yuanji? What kind of messy things did he teach you?" The little demon girl casually asked. "Master said, as a man, you must protect the woman that you have slept with to death. If you are in trouble, I will not turn a blind eye to it." Even though Ning Fan's words were not serious, his expression was unprecedentedly serious. The little demon girl's heart skipped a beat for no reason. For a moment, she had a feeling that she wanted to be protected by Ning Fan. However, she had always relied on her own hands to do things and never relied on the help of others. That feeling was instantly suppressed by her. Instead, she revealed her usual unruly smile and said, "Don't take advantage of me. Even though I call you husband, I have never done the deed of a husband and wife with you. I don't need you to protect me. Even though I am a sacrificial offering, I have a good life. I will not encounter any great calamity, so you don't need to protect me. The little demon girl had not finished speaking when the entire space of the ninth star suddenly shook violently. Tens of thousands of purple flying insects suddenly flew into the space of the ninth star. They buzzed and rushed towards Ning Fan and the little demon girl. Before the little demon girl could react, Ning Fan had already hugged her waist and retreated. Ning Fan's eyes looked at the purple flying insects in the ninth star and the boundless starry sky outside the giant door. If he was not mistaken, these purple flying insects were transformed from the power of his medicine soul. It was a type of battle soul technique that could use the medicine soul's power to attack the enemy without leaving a trace. If one's medicine soul was not strong enough, they would not be able to see the attacks of these flying insects. Flying insects transformed from the battle soul technique. Destroy. Ning Fan also released the power of his medicine soul. Countless black butterflies appeared in the ninth star and rushed towards the purple flying insects. The black butterflies were the forms of Ning Fan's medicine soul. Their number was 10 times more than the purple flying insects, but they could only fight evenly with them. After the purple insects and the black butterflies collided, they turned into purple snowflakes and scattered. They piled up strangely and formed a purple snowman. The black butterflies broke their wings and dispersed. In the end, all the purple flying insects turned into purple snowflakes while 90% of the black butterflies were destroyed. After Ning Fan retreated, he stopped moving. Even though he had defeated tens of thousands of purple flying insects, he did not relax at all. With a sigh, he kept the power of his medicine soul and raised his hand. The memory-severing Dao sword was already in his hand. Without saying a word, he slashed at the purple snowman. Ning Fan sighed because he realized that the power of his medicine soul was far less powerful than the medicine soul of the owner of the purple flying insects. He could not eliminate the purple flying insects with his medicine soul. This slash used 120% of his divine ability, gathering the 108,000 illusory sword radiance in one slash. With Ning Fan's mid-ghost profound realm cultivation base, even an ordinary peak ghost profound realm cultivator would have a hard time withstanding the power of this slash. After this slash, the entire ninth star was immediately filled with countless illusory swords, and all of them rushed towards the purple snowman. Just as the empty eyes of the snowman lit up with some spiritual light, it was hit by the countless sword rays. It let out a low roar and was finally destroyed by the sword rays, turning into specks of purple light and dispersing. At this moment, Ning Fan finally heaved a sigh of relief. He kept the memory-severing Dao sword back into his body and looked at the starry sky outside the giant door with a solemn expression. These purple flying insects had flown in from the outside. Could that ability just now be a battle soul technique? Speaking of which, little Fan, when did you break through to the mid-ghost profound realm? Why don't I know about it? The little demoness nestled in Ning Fan's arms, but her heart was beating rapidly. She was not a pill refinement master and did not have a strong medicine soul. Thus, she could not see those purple flying insects clearly. However, she could sense the power of those flying insects. If it wasn't for Ning Fan's swift actions that killed those flying insects and the snowman that they transformed into, she would certainly be severely injured by them. That ability of those flying insects is indeed a battle soul technique. It was performed by a pill refinement cultivator in the Primal Pill Star region. Sun Luo has already arrived at the Primal Pill Star region. Perhaps there will be a tough battle here. As soon as Ning Fan finished speaking, he did not say anything else. The little demoness knitted her brows and also looked at the starry sky outside the giant door. At this moment, Sun Luo had already arrived outside the Primal Pill Star region. There were nearly 10 million cultivators standing in the surrounding starry sky. All of them were the troops of the Primal Pill Star region. Among this group of cultivators, the lowest cultivation base was at the Void Fragmentation realm. There were more than 100 true Immortal Realm cultivators. Among this group of cultivators, 30 to 40% of them were Pill Refinement Masters. In the center of the group of cultivators, there was an elderly man with red eyebrows. He wore purple robes and was sitting on a purplish-red rhinoceros. He was holding a horsetail whisk magic treasure. The tip of the horsetail whisk was not made of hemp but flowing with purple flames. His body was surrounded by purple snowflakes which were formed by the power of his medicine soul. The tens of thousands of purple flying insects that had just entered the ninth star space were cast by this person. However, it was just a small part of his ability. This elderly man with red eyebrows had the cultivation base of the fourth tribulation of the eternal era. His name was Do Shi and he was quite famous in the Eastern Heaven immortal world. Wherever his eyes could see, the starry sky was filled with countless purple flying insects. There were not just hundreds of millions, billions, or even tens of billions of them. Fortunately, it was only tens of thousands of flying insects that attacked Ning Fan. He was still able to resist them. If it was all the flying insects, Ning Fan would probably die under this person's battle soul ability. If all the flying insects in this starry sky attacked at the same time, no one below the immortal Emperor realm would be able to resist it. The primal pill star region is not a place for you to behave atrociously. Sun Luo, even though you are strong, you are not a pill refinement master. You may not be able to resist my stem borer returns to snow technique. As soon as Do Shi saw Sun Luo, his eyes turned cold. He raised his hand and pointed at Sun Luo with the horsetail whisk in his hand. Stem borer returns to snow. Are you referring to these annoying flies? Sun Luo snorted disdainfully. He suddenly jumped off the destruction beast and stepped on the blood-red flames. A devil roar soared to the sky. This devil roar contained the devil intent of his entire life. As soon as the blood-red sound circle spread out, a large number of primal core realm cultivators immediately died. There were even countless flying insects that died under Sun Luo's devil roar amidst the buzzing sound circle. After being hit by the blood-red sound circle, Immortal King Do Shi's face immediately turned unnaturally red. He felt a sharp pain in his chest. He coughed out blood and fell off the rhinoceros. His eyes were filled with shock. The snowflakes that were circling around him also collapsed. Impossible! You were definitely not strong to this extent back then. Are you here today to destroy the Supreme Pill Star region again? If that's the case, even if I die, I will protect the Supreme Pill Star region and fight to the death with you. Do Shi swallowed his blood and glared at Sun Luo angrily. He did not show much fear. The corners of Sun Luo's mouth curled up. He did not attack to kill Do Shi. He just stood where he was, under the horrified gazes of millions of cultivators. He snorted coldly and sent a voice transmission to Do Shi. Do Shi, you were not my match back then. Now, you are even less of a match for me. Ask your master to come out and see me. I have an agreement with him. I have already found part of what he wants. I am here today for this. As soon as he heard that Sun Luo had found what his master wanted, Do Shi's eyes immediately changed. After pondering for a while, Do Shi made a decision. He sent a voice transmission to the cultivators around him, ordering them to disperse in the starry sky and make way for him to enter the primal pill star region. Then he gritted his teeth and cupped his fists at Sun Luo. Since you have already found what my master wants, you are a friend and not an enemy. Come with me to see my master. As soon as he finished speaking, Do Shi got on his rhinoceros and gave Sun Luo a deep look. With a leap, he flew towards the central region of the primal pill star region. However, he was not looking at Sun Luo. Instead, he was looking at Ning Fan, who was in the ninth star of the Sun Luo. Previously, when he used the stem borer returns to snow technique, it seemed like he was attacking Sun Luo by force. In fact, he had already sent a few purple insects into the space of the ninth star of the Sun Luo, intending to ambush Sun Luo and give him a fatal blow. He did not expect that there were actually two immortal cultivators hiding in the space of the ninth star of the Sun Luo. One of them was at the early mortal profound realm, while the other was at the mid-ghost profound realm. The mid-ghost profound realm cultivator was quite powerful. He actually killed all the tens of thousands of purple insects that he had sent into the ninth star of the Sun Luo. One should know that even an ordinary early crossing truth realm cultivator would not be able to kill tens of thousands of flying insects in one go. Since when did a ghost profound realm cultivator who could match Dujin appear in the Eastern Heaven immortal world? Do Shi muttered to himself. After a while, he put this matter to the back of his mind. After all, no matter how powerful that ghost profound realm cultivator was, he was not worthy of an immortal king like him paying too much attention to him. Sen Luo jumped onto the destruction beast expressionlessly and followed behind Doshi. They flew towards the central region of the primal pill star region. His lips curled into a faint smile. He had really underestimated Doshi. He did not expect that he would actually be plotted against by this person and send tens of thousands of purple insects into the 9th star. If Ning Fan did not help him, he would probably also be plotted against by this person and suffer some injuries. I never owe favors. Since he helped me, no matter what his motive is, I owe him a favor. He seems to be a pill refinement master. If that's the case, I can ask for some things from that primal pill star realm old man and give them to him to repay his favor. Sen Luo thought. The direction that Sen Luo and Doshi were heading towards was the central region of the primal pill star region. Through the giant door, Ning Fan looked at the distant starry sky. In that direction, there was a sea of stars that was formed by the convergence of scarlet starlight. At the center of that sea of stars, there were ancient ruins that floated in the middle of the sea of stars. Among the countless ancient cities, there was only one that was still flowing with immortal divine light. There was an ancient altar on it which could open up a passage of time and space that led directly to an ancient secret place. Ning Fan had long heard of the name of that secret place. Its name was the Supreme Pill Sacred Region. At this moment, in that ancient divine city, a purplish-golden round pill was hovering quietly in the middle of the divine palace. That pill was 1,000,000 zhang in size. It was hard to imagine what kind of giant the pill refinement master who concocted this pill was to actually be able to concoct such a gigantic pill. All of a sudden, the purplish-golden pill flashed and disappeared without a trace. Inside the divine palace, an elderly man with purple hair and long ears was left. His body was sometimes surrounded by monstrous devil qi and sometimes by dense immortal qi. The long-eared elderly man's eyes were filled with joy. Through the divine palace, he looked at Doshi and Sen Luo who were outside the boundless void space with a smile on his face. I didn't expect that little Sen Luo could really find the 3 items that I need. I just don't know which one he found. Is it the pill god's fragment of the immemorial pill devil? Or is it the beginning, nirvana and desolate 3 qi of the ancient immortal saint? Or the yin-yang locket which contains one of the 9 great secret keys of the ancient heavenly desolate ancient realm? If the first item can help me break through the shackles of my pill devil body and attain a higher cultivation realm, it will naturally be the best. If it's the second item, I will have the chance to step into the legendary 3rd step of Tao cultivation, which is to return to immortality and become a saint. But if it's the 3rd item, as he spoke, the long-eared elderly man's eyes suddenly burned with passion. That passion was even more fervent than when he mentioned the first 2 items. If there's the 3rd item, I can summon one of the 9 great secret keys and use the hidden ancient sacred passage of the Supreme Pill Sacred Region to cross to one of the 9 great secret realms of the ancient heavenly desolate ancient realm. If that's the case, then The long-eared elderly man suddenly stopped speaking and looked out of the divine palace. Far away from the divine city, in the sky above the sea of stars, the Doshi and Sen Luo had already arrived outside the divine city. Hee, after so many years, little friend, you are still as elegant as ever. The long-eared elderly man chuckled. His figure flashed and appeared outside the divine city. He stood in the starry sky with his hands behind his back, looking at Sen Luo with a smile. Sen Luo also smiled, but it was a sneer. He said that he found one of the 3 items that the long-eared elderly man needed, but it was just a lie. He did find the fragment of the pill god left behind by the immemorial pill devil, but the spirituality of the fragment had already withered and was no longer useful. This item might not be enough to fulfill his wish. Even if he really found the item that the long-eared elderly man needed, he might not be able to fulfill his wish. This long-eared elderly man had always been good at turning his back on people. If he wanted to fulfill his wish, he would most likely need to use force. I wonder which treasure little friend has found this time. The long-eared elderly man chuckled and asked. Sinluo didn't say much. He flipped his hand and took out a brocade box and threw it to the long-eared elderly man. The long-eared elderly man caught the brocade box and didn't open it. He only released the power of his medicine soul and sensed the item inside through countless profound restrictions. His expression was overjoyed at first, but after a moment, it became extremely gloomy. With a sneer, the aura of the seventh eternal tribulation swept out and snorted at Sinluo. Is this the sincerity that you were talking about? Are you toying with this old man? Do you really think that because you are from the godly void pavilion, this old man won't dare to touch you? Under that pressure, not to mention the battle rhino immortal king, the purple flame rhinoceros under him and the destruction beast under Sinluo's feet, their aura became chaotic. Only Sinluo's aura remained still, unafraid of the long-eared elderly man's aura. Primal pill, I've already brought the thing you wanted. Where is the thing I want? You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.